analysis, sound from the locker room, and your reaction to the game. When the clock hits 0, we bring you overtime. Take it away, boys.
Well, the clock isn't quite at 0, but the game is over. It's 38-10, Green Bay over the 49ers in Green Bay. Still 4+ minutes left. The Niners will get the ball back, but they're down by 28 points. This ball game is over. The 49ers officially 5-6, and their playoff hopes take a major hit today in Green Bay. Depending on what stats website you go to, Niners playoff chances now somewhere around 15% or something like that. But if we're just taking a look at how it feels more dire than that. Welcome into overtime here on 95.7 The Game. My name is Mark Randy, joined as always by Kyle Madsen and Sterling Bennett. Guys, we do not know what the final score will be, but it was an ugly game for the 49ers. It's 38-10 right now. Niners down like 4 of their 5 most important players. You did not have Brock Purdy. You did not have Nick Bosa. You did not have Trent Williams. You did not have Charvarius Ward. You missed so many key players in this football game. It was always going to be an uphill battle, but this was a little more ugly than I was expecting.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Like
Yep.
that's what I did not expect the 49ers to win today necessarily, but to come out the way they did, uncompetitive, and to be uncompetitive for most of the game, and then in a game where you need to be as buttoned up as humanly possible. You need to, all right, this is lock in and play a perfect game, and maybe you still don't win, but at least you give yourself a shot. They didn't. Turn the ball over. You got penalties. They get a big special teams play, which they needed from Deebo Samuel, called back by penalty. It just, it was not a competitive effort, and I think that's the most disappointing part. I expected them to come out at least fired up and playing hard. They didn't. They quit, and that sucks.
This was a game that I thought, okay, at least make me say, well, if you had Brock Purdy, well, if you had Trent Williams, well, if you had Nick Bosa, and unfortunately, I don't think it would have mattered had they had any 3 of those guys out there. They still would have lost this game because every single thing that went wrong has plagued them the previous 10 games.
Yep.
Turnovers, penalties, special teams, back-breaking defense on 3rd and 2nd and long, drop interceptions to help you get back in the football game, not capitalizing on the other team trying to give you the game. The Packers didn't play great today. They ran the football well. Jordan Love had under 100 yards through 3 quarters. The Niners were in this game up until the beginning of that 4th quarter. They had every chance to fight their way back, and every time they continue to shoot themselves in the foot and push themselves 2 steps back every time they try to take 1 step forward.
Yeah, the Niners had the ball twice in the 3rd quarter with a chance to make it a 1-score game. It was only a 10-point game at halftime. The Niners trailed 17-0. They go down and they put together a really nice drive to close the first half. It ended with a George Kittle great touchdown in the back of the end zone. Kittle, one of the few Niners that showed up today, 6 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown as we speak. Still 4 minutes to go. The Niners facing a 3rd and 10, but they're down by 28 points. This drive does not matter. You just hope everybody of importance and everybody stays healthy if you are still hoping that the Niners can turn this season into something. But the Niners had 2 chances, 2 drives, guys, where they were only down by 10 in the 3rd quarter. And that's when, as you guys already pointed to, they could not get out of their own way, turnovers, and that was essentially it, because then the Packers go down, they get a touchdown, you make it a 2-score game with the field goal, but it's been all Packers since then. You have been able to do nothing on offense. Kyle, I think you brought up the right point early in this football game. Turnovers, it was the penalties that doomed your drives in the beginning. That, though, there was a hold by Dominic Pooney, there was 2 false starts by Dominic Pooney, and an oddly off game for him, and those killed each of the 49ers' first 2 drives. And then 15 missed tackles in the first half. The defensive tackling was pretty gross in this football game as well. You guys said it. If the Niners were to win this game without their quarterback, without their best edge rusher, without all of these players, they had to be perfect in all those little areas, and Green Bay was by far better in all those little areas tonight as well.
Well, we did the football hour on Thursday, right? We talked about, okay, if you could only have one of Bosa, Purdy, or Trent Williams, which one are you taking? And we decided it doesn't really matter because you don't feel great about it either way. And then they had none of them. It just, you mentioned the missed tackles. It's like they approached this game the way I think we all probably kind of felt about it. Like, yeah, hey, they don't have a great chance to win this one.
Yeah.
And that, we can feel that way. We don't have an impact on the game. Like, we're just out here catching vibes. The fact that the team went out and looked like that, it's the first time in the Kyle Shanahan era, even going back to like 2017, this is the first time they have played a game and I've felt like, oh, they quit from the jump. They were not competitive from snap one.
There was still a moment, though, early second half, where you're like, oh, all right.
But in the same way, like, you kind of felt that way in the 2022 NFC title game.
Like McCaffrey touchdown?
Yeah, like McCaffrey scores, and you're looking at it, you're going, okay, if you get a stop.
Are they actually going to do this without a quarterback?
Well, then the Eagles score right before the half, but then you're going, okay, but if you go down and score here, you get a field goal, you're only down 4. And then Josh Johnson fumbles, and they score again before the half, and it just kind of felt over from that point. That's the way it felt today. And to have this season, the season's done, man. I don't. You got to win out and get help.
Seattle's ahead right now. You never know.
Yeah, but you lose ground on Seattle, but you gain ground on the Cardinals, or you don't gain ground.
You're only a game out, brother. You're only a game and a half out still.
Man. Jeez,
but yeah, the effort from the jump, at least everybody that I talked to, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way, it was going to take a Herculean effort by the defense to hold Green Bay to 17 points and maybe keep it close late. But the defense getting run all over for 3 consecutive drives.
Yes.
It was like, yep, that's how this is going to go. It's going to be a trouncing. It'll be over come third quarter. And surprisingly, it wasn't. To give the defense some credit, that second half, they did make some adjustments and they did play well. Got a couple of 3-and-outs. Almost picked off Love twice. Like, there was some good things, I guess, to say of the defense in a very small sample size in that third quarter, but ultimately it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because Brandon Allen was slipping and sliding, turning the ball over. I mean, I guess the big bright spot really is George Kittle, who continues to be awesome, whether it's Nick Mullins or Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy or Trey Lance or Brandon Allen. He still looks like all-pro George Kittle. Unfortunately, he can't play the other 10 positions. It's one guy doing everything out there.
Yeah. It's overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy, Kyle Madsen, Sterling Bennett. We want to hear from you guys, Niner fans. We're here so you can vent to us. You can get out your frustration. That's what we're doing here as well. So give us a call. Shoot us a text. 888-957-9570. I see the 650, the 209, the 408 chiming in already on the Comcast Business text line. Keep them coming. We'll get to all your calls and texts throughout the evening here on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. Sterling, you pointed out the defense in the second half. There was a decent chunk of this game where they kept the Niners in the football game. First 3 drives were bad, as you guys already pointed to. 12-play touchdown drive. 10-play field goal drive, 12-play touchdown drive, 17-0 before you can even blink, really. After that, punt, the Brandon Allen interception set up a short field touchdown. That's not on the defense. And then another punt. And then another punt. So there were 5 drives after the first 3 scoring drives by the Packers where the Niners only gave up points on a short field touchdown drive for the Packers after a Niners interception on offense. 4 other drives, they were punts, and they kept the team in it. I know it's rough to see the 38-point total right now, but honestly, I didn't think the defense was terrible. I mean, you can look at all the missed tackles, and that is frustrating as hell, and Josh Jacobs running through like 4 guys seemingly on every single play, and yeah, I get it, that's rough. But they didn't play nearly as bad as 38 points suggest, and they didn't play good enough to win the football game. Like, they were going to have to play out of their minds for this offense to have a chance. Down your quarterback, down your best offensive lineman by a mile. Deebo Samuel seems to be nothing still. You needed more, but it's not as if the defense was absolutely abominable in this game.
The run defense was gross.
Yes.
Like that was really bad, but you're missing Nick Bosa, who's arguably your best run defender. Jordan Elliott, who's not great, but
missed the entire second half.
Out for the entire second half. Like, they just didn't have the horses to stop Green Bay up front. Like, that was a concern going into the game.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to have to devote so many resources to stopping the run, and they just couldn't. But to your point, like, they hung around. They gave the offense an opportunity. But I can't even really put it on Brandon Allen necessarily. He wasn't good. Like, this is not to say Brandon Allen was awesome.
Kind of like what I expected.
Yeah, but I mean, Deebo Samuel has 1 catch and should have had another one that goes through his hands and goes for an interception.
Yeah.
Biggest play of the game, most likely.
Yeah, you're right.
Game
that
turn
was
right
it.
there. Yeah.
That was it.
Yep.
And I know it wasn't like an easy reception, but but that's Deebo Samuel. That's not Ronnie Bell. That's not Rando Guy.
Not Chris Conley.
That's a guy.
Yeah.
That is one of your dogs. That's one of the guys who has to go make a play for you.
Like Kittle makes that catch.
Yes, George Kittle made a couple of ridiculous catches today.
The back hip, back shoulder spin around.
Insane.
Oh my
Great
God.
throw and great catch.
It's like, does Ricky Pearsall have a target yet? No targets for your first round receiver, but we can get Chris Conley and Eric Saubert the ball. Okay.
Hey, he's been returning punts though. Don't worry, Ricky Pearsall staying busy.
Getting the ball in his
Although
hands.
better just fair catching because there's a hold on every single kickoff and punt return.
It's unbelievable.
Jesus.
Yeah, man, that's where like today irks me because you go look at Green Bay and outside of Josh Jacobs 26 for 106 and 3 touchdowns, Jordan Love 13 of 23, a $163, 2 touchdowns, probably should have thrown 2 picks.
Also should have had like a 60-yard touchdown at the end of the first half because Christian
that's a good
Watson
point.
just
That's a
ran
good
right
point.
past Isaac Adam and he dropped a perfectly placed
Just
ball.
a dot.
Man.
It's disappointing for sure, man. Jordan Mason's in the game. That's nice.
Finally.
Love to see that. Like, that's the other thing. Here, just while we're venting.
Stream of consciousness. Keep it going.
Here we go. Green Bay is out there running 2 running back stuff. Every person who talks about the 49ers a little has been like, why don't Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey just share the
Oh
field?
man.
Christian McCaffrey, everyone's like, he could be an all-pro as a slot receiver. All right, let's see it then. Let's see. Let's mess with the defense here. Let's put Christian McCaffrey out in the slot. Dude, Mark and I are sitting here in the studio.
Yep.
Jordan Mason comes in, and we go, Jordan Mason's in, and I go,
Early third quarter.
I go, first explosive run of the game coming up. Bang, 16 yards.
Yeah. No, I was. I guarantee he's running for a first down here. Then you took it a step further to the explosive
and he
run,
just
and
fumbled.
then it happened. Yeah. Well, the Niners recovered. Don't worry.
Unreal, dude.
It's fine. Yeah. Go ahead, Sterling. Go ahead.
What a joke.
I was just going to say, like, even Tom Brady, who you could think what you want of Tom Brady as a broadcaster, even he's questioning, why is Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey not on the field at the same time? It doesn't make sense. It gives you... It gives the defense something else to look out for. And on 4th down, you're going empty set with Christian McCaffrey lined out wide, not Jordan Mason in the backfield. It's just very questionable calls, but even then, the execution was so poor today. But somehow, at halftime, San Francisco goes into halftime down 17-7 with the idea, hey, we're getting the ball out of halftime. Go down, score a touchdown, make it a 3-point game or at least a 1-score game. At that time, they had run 17 plays for 96 yards. The Packers had 38 plays for 218 yards, including 125 of those on the ground, and they had 17 points, and somehow they had a chance through 3 quarters in this game. That shows you that despite everything that went wrong, which literally everything went wrong in this game for San Francisco, defensively, offensively, turnover, special teams, doesn't matter. It was atrocious for a lot of this game. They still have found themselves in little pockets of each game this year. They have a chance. And I don't know if it gives fans hope. I know right now we're all kind of doom and gloom. The season feels over. I don't know what Brock Purdy's health status is. That feels like it's more serious than they're leading it on to be, but that's just me. And look, Brock Purdy's not going to save how bad this offensive line's played or how bad the defense has played or, all these special teams disasters every single game. Like, this game felt just like every other Niner game, but with the backup quarterback and the backup left tackle and no Nick Bosa. Every game's the same. Doesn't matter who's in, who's out. Every game is exactly the same.
Yeah. It was same issues, same mistakes, same frustrating moments, but it was just 10 times worse because you're doing it now without, like 4 of your 5 most important players on the roster. And that makes it, of course, so much more difficult. But Sterling, you pointed to the moment, beginning of the third quarter, when the Niners had the ball out of the halftime break, down 10, and they put together a little bit of a drive. That was when we saw the Jordan Mason run, 16 yards. They get over midfield. They're faced with a 3rd and 8. Brandon Allen looking a little bit like Brock Purdy, although a lot slower. Runs, decent play to get 6 yards. Brings up a 4th and 2. And I'm sure you were thinking the same thing. Kyle and I here in the studio and our guy Cam behind the glass all thinking the same thing. You got to go for it. Down 10. It's very deep field goal range. Go for it. You're going to try to get a touchdown or at least make it an easier field goal. Go for it. And what does Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers offense do? 4th and 2, You are from the Green Bay 39-yard line, all right? So you're across midfield. It's an easy go-for-it situation, in my opinion. So I love the decision to go for it. But what do? You motion Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield on 4th and 2. So you're asking Brandon Allen to go empty on 4th and 2. First of all, that tells the Packers, hey, we're going to throw the ball. Don't even need to worry about the run. 2, if the Packers are going to blitz, you got no one to protect Brandon Allen. And he had to rush a throw, looking only at Christian McCaffrey, who was well defended by one of the best DBs in the league, Xavier McKinney, who had a pick later on in the game, incomplete, turnover on downs. And at that point, you kind of feel like that was a turning point in the game. The Debo dropped interception was another one later on. But that 4th and 2 failure to convert, where for some reason you tell the Packers that you're not going to run by moving McCaffrey out of the backfield, it made no sense to me. It feels like you're doing yourself a disservice by tipping your cap to the Packers and giving them an idea of what's coming. On 4th and 2, the most important play of the game at that point, I would really like Kyle Shanahan to explain the thought process behind that. Maybe I'm just too naive of a football mind to fully understand, but to me, that makes no sense. Why are you telling your opponent that you're going to throw on 4th and 2?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't love that at all. I hate the shotgun empty on 4th and short every single time. Like not even making them think about it.
Like if you've got if you got Lamar Jackson back there, it's a different story because Lamar can run it himself.
Sure.
You got Brandon Allen. You're not running it with Brandon Allen.
No kind of play. And maybe that just comes from a lack of trust in the offensive line, which I would get. He doesn't think the offensive line can get enough push to run it for 2 yards. So, hey, we're just going to put McCaffrey out in a route.
Put McCaffrey in the slot and put Jordan Mason in the backfield.
Well, and take Chris Conley off the field? Are you kidding?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I the hesitation to use both running backs at the same time is baffling to me. I don't understand it. The fact that Chris Conley is getting a play-action shot play when Ricky Pearsall can't is baffling to me. That Eric Saubert is A, on the team, B, on the field at all, ever, is baffling to me. Today was perfectly indicative of the season. Sterling hit the nail on the head. I think you absolutely nailed it, dude, when you said that this game was just what the 49ers would look like without such a top-heavy roster. Yep, that's a great damn point, because that is exactly what this was. There's nobody to bail them out.
No, nobody. It's so frustrating, too, because that 4th down, okay, San Francisco doesn't get the 1st down, and you think, okay, interesting. How's the defense going to respond? And the defense immediately forces a 3 and out. Great, no harm, no foul. They got the ball back, and you're feeling okay. All right, what does the offense do? They get a 31-yarder to Kittle up the middle of the football field. They're moving the football, and on 3rd and 8, that's when Debo can't catch the football over the middle, turns into a pick. And this sequence of events just shows you exactly how close San Francisco is, but also just how far away they've been every single game this year. They get the 87-yard kick return by Debo Samuel to open half. Great. Wow. We're at the 13-yard line of Green Bay. We are in the red zone, about to score at least a field goal, make it a 1-score game. Nope. Called back by an Eric Saubert holding call. Okay, great. The next drive, your defense gets a stop. Well, here's a pick. Here's an interception. Okay, great. Because Debo Samuel can't catch the football. The very next drive by Green Bay, DPI in the end zone leads to a Josh Jacobs touchdown. That right there flipped the game from a 1-score game, maybe in your favor, or a 17-14 game or whatnot, to a 21-point lead by the Packers. It's that sequence right there that cost San Francisco this game.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's kind of the story of the season. There's been moments in almost every single game, specifically the losses, and even in some of the wins, where you're going, they just shot themselves in the foot, like on 4 consecutive, not necessarily plays, but moments of drives, and that's what flips these games that the Niners are playing in. And it's the same story every single week. This one obviously is different because you're down so many key players. I mean, the list of Niners inactives for this game: Trent Williams, Brock Purdy, Nick Bosa, Mooney Ward. You've got so many players, and along with Kevin Givens and Jacob Cowing and Khalil Davis, who they acquired at the trade deadline. You got so many key guys that are not even available for for you in this football game, that it's going to be increasingly difficult. And if there was ever a moment for the Niners to play their cleanest game, this was the time, because this was the only opportunity for them. That was the only opportunity for them to win the football game, was if they played clean. And they might have played one of their, less clean games of the season. And that is saying a lot considering how bad some of the games have been so far this year. It's overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy, Kyle Madsen, Sterling Bennett with you. We're just getting started. Let's go out to the phones and keep the calls and keep the texts coming. 888-957-9570. The 49ers, it is a final, by the way, in Green Bay. The final score is 38-10. The Niners fall to 5-6. And they're back below 500 once again. Okay, up first here on overtime is Fozzie in the East Bay. What's up, Fozzie? How you feeling about that loss? Fozzie, you there?
Thanks for having me on, Kyle, man.
I got you.
Man.
Go ahead. Sorry about that, Fozzie. We got you now. How's it going?
All right, but tough one, man. Thanks for having me on, Kyle. Good to see you back on the air. But yeah, man, I think it was going to be a hard game, even with Brock Purdy there. I know, we're always going to back our team and stuff like that, but we'll call it for what it has been for so far this season. Man, we're 12 games in. This team really doesn't have an identity, and now going into this game with backup quarterback, you've seen the results, man. We got our butts spanked today, man, and it was hard to watch. But you know what? I think it's time to turn the page on this season, man, and we'll have time to react on this game. But I think for the future, giving Brock Purdy a big contract is going to be worth it, because we've seen what this team looks without him. Cheers, boys. I'm going.
Appreciate the call, Fozzie. I think it's an interesting point as it relates to the future of Brock Purdy. I don't think it would have looked necessarily pretty with Brock Purdy in there either, but it would have looked a little bit better. And just the absence of Brock Purdy maybe makes you appreciate what he brings to the team as well.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. There were definitely some throws I thought that Josh Allen missed that Purdy probably
Brandon
missed.
Allen.
Brandon Allen, thank you. Oh, I wish it was Josh Allen. No, but I think the thing that jumped out was the thing you were talking about earlier, is the mobility.
Yeah.
That just the inability to navigate the pocket. And I thought Tom Brady brought up he brought up this point 19 times during the broadcast. And I think it's apt. Brandon Allen hasn't started a game in 3 years.
Yeah, week 18, 2021, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's stepping into an NFL game after being in practice. It's just going to be different. Like
having broken
finger,
yeah.
mind you.
What the Niners never told anybody about. We see him out there on the field.
Well, he showed up on the practice report for week 10 on Thursday with a finger injury, but he was a full participant. And he was a full participant in Friday's practice, and then was not on the injury report, and he hasn't been on the practice report since.
And he's got a cast on his left middle finger.
He's got a little rappy bit there on his finger. So it just the lack of mobility.
Twice.
A stunner. The lack of also all three Niners turnovers went for Packer touchdowns today.
Wow.
But the mobility factor was it for me. Like when he would start to maneuver in the pocket, is like disaster. Anything that happens from the moment when he was dropping back, he was setting his feet, ball is out, he was fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the minute it was back, set his feet, got to step up, it's like, oh boy, like this isn't going to go well. And like you just can't have that behind an offensive line that is subpar at pass blocking.
Yeah, you know what it's felt like, Sterling? It felt kind of like a Jimmy Garoppolo moment.
Oh boy.
Man, hey, they beat the Packers a couple of years back with no offense at all. With Jimmy G as the quarterback.
Hufanga. Yeah.
But does that open the door for the conversation as to why Joshua Dobbs didn't start today? I don't care. You didn't know that Brock Purdy may have not been able to play. Maybe he could have played. But the idea that Joshua Dobbs played meaningful football last year for the Vikings and a little bit for the Cardinals, beat the Cowboys last year early in the season. And look, they probably would have lost this game anyways. But you want mobility. There's a guy sitting back that they gave guaranteed money to in the offseason. They thought be the quarterback too. And yeah, you probably still lose. Maybe it's not by 28 points. Maybe it's by 24 points. And we're all sitting back like, oh, well, whatever. But why didn't Joshua Dobbs start? I don't get that.
I mean, I
Probably
agree.
because he stinks.
I agree
That's
with.
fair.
I mean,
so does Brandon Allen, so it doesn't matter.
first of all, they're losing this game with either of those
No
guys
matter what.
starting at
That's
quarterback.
it. That's yeah.
But I am with you, Sterling, that I personally am a little bit confused, but you ask why, and to me, it's a very simple answer, and this is just if I can try to pretend to be Kyle Shanahan for a second.
Say it.
Brandon Allen's been on the roster now for 2 years. He knows the offense,
he knows
guys.
the offense, baby.
He knows the offense. He has memorized the playbook, and guess what? Josh Dobbs, I know he's a real smart guy, hasn't mastered the playbook yet. You got to keep mastering it. Yep.
On
You
that
literally,
fumble. Go ahead,
you
Sterling.
signed an astrophysicist. If you need anyone to save your season, isn't it the freaking astronaut? Like, you need a miracle. That guy's going to go to space one day. He can help somehow.
Yeah, I know, but he can't throw a quick out to Juwan Jennings.
I think that's literally probably it. Like I know that like we joke about that, but that's just Kyle Shanahan was more confident. There was less variance, and hey, if everything gets executed perfectly, Brandon. But like this is where I have frustrations with Kyle Shanahan. Like you know it's not going to be perfect. You know your offensive line is poor. You know that you have Juwan Jennings and a broke ass Deebo Samuel and not broke financially, like a substandard
broke
version,
financially.
doing very
Financially,
well
mind you.
for himself. Very successful wide receiver Deebo Samuel, who is a shell of himself.
And also McCaffrey, who does not look like last year's McCaffrey
Has
still.
not looked right. It just like you're banking on everything going perfectly, which okay, but let's be
Breaking news.
Let's be real.
It's not going to go perfectly.
It has not gone perfectly for 10 weeks. I don't, but again, we can have this discussion. It's easy. We can bounce it back and forth all day.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs, the quarterback play is so far down the list of things wrong with this game.
Yes.
Maybe Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, I mean,
to what end?
I do think that a lot of this is that Joshua Dobbs probably does things outside of the scheme Shanahan doesn't like, where it's a scrambling, not playing on time and all this stuff, and Shanahan's like, no, do what I say, trust me blindly. And it's like, well, have you given anybody, including your quarterbacks, a reason to trust you blindly this year? I don't think so. But you're right, Kyle. The quarterback, while yes was a factor, they got to clean up second and long defensive issues.
Oh, man.
They got to fix the offensive line, the penalties. Jake Brendel still is a turnstile at center. They got, again, no Deebo Samuel, shell of himself, like you said, Kyle. It's like Deebo Samuel's biggest play of the day was a kick return that didn't even count. And I guess a trick play that took literally like 3 different players that had to pitch the ball 3 different times to different people to actually make the play worthwhile. Now, it was a 21-yard play, but this felt like the Niners are a ghost of who they once were, and no one's saving them. Shanahan's not doing it. Brandon Allen ain't doing it. Joshua Dobbs ain't doing it. And if Brock Purdy somehow comes back against the Bears in 2 weeks or against the Bills next week, they're going to lose again. They're simply just not good enough. Now, you can say, well, they're 1.5 game out of the division, and there's still a chance. And yeah, stat-wise and mathematically, that's true. But ultimately, at the end of the year, we're talking about, hey, 13th overall pick. Hey, 15th overall pick. Who's this team's first-round pick this year compared to they just missed the playoffs by 1 or 2 games?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they've got so many other problems that we can talk about the quarterback spot, and obviously, I mean, it would look different if Purdy was in there. They probably still lose this game with Purdy, even if they don't have Trent Williams, they don't have Nick Bosa, they don't have all these other guys. Like, this was a game where the Niners just were simply outclassed from a talent perspective, but also just from a playing football perspective, because the Niners made so many more mistakes than the Packers did. 888-957-9570 as overtime continues. The Niners fall in Green Bay 38-10. Niners now 5-6, back below 500 in 2024. Let's go back out to the phone lines. Dave is in South San Francisco, and he's on overtime now on 95.7 The Game. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I expected a win today. We got the talent. It was a lot closer than I thought. And, I mean, it wasn't at the end, but all these penalties and missed tackles, it's just like we kind of messed up on our own accord. And hats off to Kittle. He did good, but, I don't want to criticize the team. I'm a couch potato. But basically, they could have done a lot better, Last year, they were much more potent. The offensive line, Cafferty, was feared in the league. Every time he got the ball, he'd get like 6, 7, 10, 12, 15 yards. Just not happening this time. So a lot of issues. I don't want to single anybody out. Love the Niners. Hope they can get it together. But I think we need to get like some help, special teams, and got to take a good look at this coach here, Mr. Shanahan. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Dave. Well, I'll say you are spot on about at least one thing that you said. They got to take a hard look at special teams. There wasn't any like major turnover that happened on special teams in this game, right?
Almost, though.
Almost. They were close. I mean, they were close last week too. But, I mean, you guys mentioned the Deebo Samuel kickoff return called back by the Saubert hold, which, I don't know, might have been a hold, might not have been a hold. It did happen right as Deebo Samuel ran past him. It probably impacted the play. I don't have a major problem with that being called. More so blame it on Eric Saubert for being in that position. But, again, it's a play on special teams that essentially directly cost you points because Deebo returned that all the way down to the 8-yard line. Instead, you get it like at the 21 as a result because I think it happened at the 31. It's a spot foul where the penalty committed. You lose 10 yards from that spot. So you go from the 8-yard line, first and goal, all the way back to the 21. You have a gigantic field ahead of you, and you can't do anything with it. So it wasn't the same kind of mistake that Niners special teams have made all season long. But I'll give this Niners special team group one thing. They're pretty creative in finding new ways to screw up, and that happened again today.
Yeah, that was... I don't know, dude. Like, this is just kind of what I expected.
Yep.
It just... That's what... I'm not firing anybody. I'm not cutting anybody. I don't, like... They finally... Here's what... The injury stuff, right? I had the guy from Packers Wire reach out to me, the USA Today Sports Media website, reach out to me and said, "Hey, why are the Niners 5-5? Like all their metrics."
How much time do you have?
It's kind of what I said. He's like, because to me, like you look at their metrics, they just look like a team that's been kind of snake bit by injuries, and it's like, well, yes, you're better if you have Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And
nice pull.
Thanks. And Christian McCaffrey, obviously, and if George Kittle's healthy all year and whatever Debo's dealing with, all that, like, yes, no doubt, you're better that way. But I had not to this point left any of the 49ers losses and gone, well, they just couldn't win. Look how injured they were. We've not discussed the injury stuff at all outside of, can't score in the red zone. McCaffrey should help that. Yeah. He hasn't. But this was the first game that going in, it was like they just can't overcome these injuries. And the disappointing part was how they played. Like if they lost, they weren't going to the playoffs. They have to win out and get help to go to the playoffs. But I think they know they're done, and I think they knew they were done when they took the field today.
You agree, Sterling?
I mean, it's hard to say no and disagree. You know, it's ironic that John Lynch, for as great as he is as a GM, he always preaches they want finishers. They want guys to go out there and finish plays and finish drives and, you know, go out there and just give you everything they have on every single snap. And this season, the Niners have been far from finishers in many areas, whether it is drives or plays or games. And for the first time this season, it felt like they didn't even start, so they never had a chance to finish. And that's not what this team has been since 2019. It's not the culture that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have established when they came here in 2017. And they've had far worse teams with far worse personnel and far worse coaching that have overcome the odds at certain points. And like in 2017, they had no wins, and Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, they went 5 in a row to end the year. Like, I would buy into that team more than this team right now, simply because that team has heart and this one doesn't. And I hate saying that because this team has so many great players. Fred Warner, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, in his prime, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, like so many great players. You say, those are guys you can ride to immortality and win a Super Bowl with. In 2024, ain't no one picking you up, ain't nobody finishing, because in this game, nobody started. You can tell from snap one, the run defense didn't come to play. The offense looked stale for 3 straight drives until Kyle finally figured something out. And even that drive in itself, the only scoring drive San Francisco had when they got a touchdown, the only reason why it happened was because Chris Conley recovered Isaac Grendo's fumble on the kickoff. Like, this game yes, had so many instances where they could claw their way back and find a way to, a miracle win in Green Bay at Lambeau. No. This team didn't have a chance to win because this team knows they're not going to win. I would not doubt if San Francisco lost every single game the rest of the year. And I would say, yep, that makes sense because this team knows they're done and knows they can't finish. So why even show up at that point?
888-957-9570. Do you think the Niners are done? Do you think they know that they're done? You can offer your opinions on that. Also, we'll take all of your calls just about the game in general. Again, 888-957-9570. Vaughn has been waiting patiently. He's in Santa Rosa. What's up, Vaughn? You're on overtime on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, guys. I am just so frustrated. Let me take a breath really quick.
Yeah, you got it.
I just got to say, man, I've been watching Shanahan, and I really, thought he was great and all that. I don't want to just bash him, but there's been a point where, I think this team might have given up on him, to the point where when I watch his post-game pressers and whatnot, he's very smug, arrogant. When anybody even presses him on any question, never says, hey, I put this on myself. It's coaching. I got to coach better. We got to coach better. He never takes it on himself. It's always diverts it away. And then not only that, special teams have been horrible all year. All year. Nothing has gotten better. Nothing has improved at all. Defensively, nothing has improved at all. The penalties, nothing has improved at all. It's gotten worse. And then you got the players injured. We just had our bye 2 weeks ago. And why are these guys out? I get it. It's football and everything. These guys all got paid. Christian McCaffrey got an extension. Trent Williams got his extension. I was all wanting the money. Now, when it comes time, they're not available. It's maybe there should be some injury clauses in those contracts. Hey, man, whatever it is. It's just I don't know what it is, but I think this part of this team has given up on Shanahan because of the Super Bowl losses, the play calling in critical times. Run the ball. You got a backup quarterback. What are you doing? You are passing the ball all the time instead of running. You got McCaffrey, the best offensive player in the league last year. You're not using him. You got Jordan Mason, no bubble screens, no nothing. It just reeks of bad coaching. Nothing's getting better. It's getting worse. And even with Purdy, I think it would have been a little bit better. And then this is the key to it all. This was over the top for me. Josh Dobbs, I thought should have been the second string quarterback out of preseason, and he performed better. But not only that, I find out today in the game, Brandon Allen has a broken finger, and he's still starting. Why? I don't get it. If Josh Dobbs is a scrambler, he could run at least. You're just putting it's accumulated so much. I really do think Shanahan's he could be. I don't even think he's a great offensive coordinator anymore. All this coordinators went to the Dolphins. They've gone other places, and now I think he's calling plays this year. I'm not sure, but I think he's the main play caller.
He's been calling plays his entire time.
Yeah, there's no bubble screens, no jet sweeps, nothing. The running plays are just straight up the middle. There's nothing 4th and 2, run the ball. I mean, at least just make it, string it out, something, get yourself somewhere going along the side of, you watch other teams, they're all doing creative things. Last week in Seattle, the bubble screens and stuff. It's just what's going on here, man? I just don't get it. It's just frustrating as hell. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think our window shouldn't be shutting it all. And that's one last thing. Everybody deals with injuries. Shanahan loses one piece, he can't overcome it. It's just what is going on? And that's the thing about it. Oh, he's such a genius. He's a genius. Where has that really came from? I don't get it. We here in the Bay Area, we see it. The national narrative is he's this genius. But I don't see it. You miss 1, 2 guys. This team has tons of talent, and it's still, he can't compensate for 1 or 2 guys being gone. Today was a big thing, but it was a close game. I saw it. But the penalties, the special teams, every week I'm anything having to do with special teams, I'm crossing my fingers we don't screw it up. Extra points, I'm wishing we make it. It's a 50-50 coin toss. Field goals, I'm 50-50. We shouldn't feel that way. This is just, something's got to change.
Yeah. Vaughn, appreciate the call. I mean,
If he said bubble screens one more time, I was walking over there and hanging up on him myself.
This is a spot where you can come on and vent your frustrations, and Vaughn clearly has a lot built up, and that's nothing against you, Vaughn. And the first thing that he brought up, well, first of all, I'm not going to question any player dealing with injuries. Like the bye week is a couple of weeks ago. Okay, they're hurt. They can't play. It is what it is. You just got to deal with it. Every NFL team is dealing with it. You got to deal with it. And this was a particularly bad injury week. Yes, we get it. But every team deals with this at some point in a given season. The first thing, though, that Vaughn talked about was essentially saying, has Kyle Shanahan lost the locker room? I know you guys were just talking about, do the Niners feel like the season is over? It feels like those two conversations kind of go hand in hand. It doesn't feel like Shanahan has lost the confidence of the rest of the roster. But a loss like this might go something in pushing it towards that direction. But it still doesn't feel like, to me, like Kyle Shanahan has lost the locker room. That feels like a major leap forward.
No, and this is where I think Kyle Shanahan deserves some criticism for sure. But he has an offense built around like the offensive line being at X level, and Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel playing at X level, and Brandon Ayuk being out there. And trying to make those adjustments, those like wholesale adjustments to these major pieces of your offense and missing them during the season, or them not performing how you're expecting them to perform, that's really tough. And that's why I say, like, next year's the big one. Next year, when you get a full offseason to rework what this offense is supposed to look like, maybe change your philosophy on drafting offensive linemen and building an offensive line. When you have a full offseason to kind of make those changes, then I think you can start judging whether he's good or not, because they've been really good for 4 out of the last 5 years. I'm not going to go tear the guy down and everything he's done over the last half decade because of one bad stretch.
We'll take this game, for example. Shanahan didn't cause Eric Saubert to hold. He didn't cause 4 different offensive line penalties that cost him drives in this game. He didn't cost him Deebo Samuel dropping a pass. He didn't, like, there are so many things that Shanahan can be held accountable for, and all those feel very valid at this point in time. His team's 5-6, coming off a Super Bowl loss, in which it was overtime, where they very much could have won that game, and the expectations set, not just for the team itself, but every single player. Nobody's met them. Not a single player has met the expectations set by them, maybe outside of Malik Mustafa, Renardo Green, and Sam Aquanu. And I'm sorry, your rookie safety, your, I guess, rookie right guard and Dominic Pooney, and your young players that are scattered throughout your defense and offense, living up to the expectations or playing above them, is only good when the stars around them are aligning and they're playing and doing their job correctly. And they're not. And that's not Kyle's fault. That's just the way the NFL goes sometimes. Some teams have bad years. Some teams can't put it together. And when you have not just 1 or 2 players, you have about 5 to 10 players playing down every single game, it's hard to overcome. And offensively, yes, Shanahan needs to get into the offensive line and rework that sucker. I want 3 new starters next year. And they have to refine and rekindle how to be aggressive and run the football. This team can't run the football anymore. That's Shanahan. That's the offensive line's problem. But all the other small stuff, I don't blame Kyle for.
Yeah, I think you said it well. Final score in Green Bay today, 38-10. The Packers knock off the 49ers. As you said, the Niners now 5-6, although the division leader Cardinals lost in Seattle today. So the Niners somehow still only a game out of the NFC West,
we got a chance,
which makes absolutely no sense given the disgusting tape that they have put out through 11 games so far this season. Okay, time for a break here on Overtime. We got plenty more time for you, your calls and your texts, 888-957-9570. Mike and Javier, I see you. We're coming to you next as Overtime continues. Mark Randy, Kyle Madsen, Sterling Bennett with you. More OT next on 95.7 The Game.
Keep your business connected with Wi-Fi backup.
zone. It's Tucker Kraft for the touchdown.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
Welcome back. Niners fall in Green Bay 38-10. The final score, that highlight you just heard, Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady via Fox. That was the first touchdown of this game. Tucker Kraft, 11 yards out. It was a 12-play, 67-yard drive that took nearly the first entire half of the first quarter off the clock. Green Bay's first 3 drives all were scoring drives, and they all were double-digit play drives. 12 plays, 10 plays, 12 plays, 17-0 Green Bay. But believe it or not, there were a couple of moments in the second half where the Niners possessed the ball only down 10 with the chance to get back within 1 score, turnover on downs, and an interception. Green Bay turns those turnovers into points. They ultimately win 38-10. A couple of garbage time scores really made it really bad. It wasn't good at any point, but the final score really bad, 38-10. And Kyle, you and I were talking during the break as we welcome everybody back. Mark, Randy, Kyle Matz, and Sterling Bennett. This is the Niners' worst loss in history to Green Bay, and that's saying something considering these two teams have been playing against each other for quite a long time.
Yeah, so Nick Wagner from ESPN had the stat here, and I want to make sure I get this right for everybody. Their 28-point loss today, their worst ever. The second worst back in 1960, they fell by 27 points. In 1959, they lost by 22 points. 97-21 and 1955-21. It's also their third biggest loss since Kyle Shanahan took over in 2017. The other 2 losses were in 2017 and 2018. It's a new low, boys.
I have another stat I can add on to that. Put this one on for size,
Lock
guys.
in.
Fewest first downs in a game for the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan. 11 versus the Seahawks, Week 2, 2017. 11 versus the Eagles in the 2022 NFC Championship game. And then today, 11 versus the Packers. Tied for the fewest first downs in the Shanahan era.
I told you it felt like the 2022 NFC title game. Just like, you know what? They don't got it today. I don't know.
We suck.
We heard,
We just suck.
I mean, yeah.
To put it succinctly.
I was going to use more words than that, but that's where I was landing the plane. No, man, it's like I get that we're going to have these big conversations about, firing people and cutting people and this and that. And I don't think the Niners are going to have those same conversations necessarily. But we just heard on the way back the Packers' first touchdown. And it was like a double screen look where Jordan Love had 2 different screens he could throw on that play.
Yeah, I think Jaden Reed on the left side.
And Tucker Kraft.
Back on the right, yeah.
And it's like, man, and this is, I think, what our last caller was getting at. Like, remember when the Niners used to do that stuff? Remember when they used to do cool stuff? Like a fake toss and then another fake toss and like a fake screen and a 360 and a throw back over the middle to George Kittle. And it was like, wow, that was fun and creative. They did the like reverse end around flea flicker screen pass today. Really interesting, really fun. Didn't see anything else as far as interesting and fun. And it goes to show like where Deebo Samuel is right now. That was the one manufactured touch for him. That's it. That was the one time they went, all right, we need to get the ball in Deebo's hands. And they had to do 19 things to get it to him first. And they didn't have a shot today, and it bears itself out in the numbers you're reading. Like one of the worst offensive performances under Kyle Shanahan, and it's like, yeah, man, they were on their backup quarterback, their backup left tackle. Brandon Ayuk is out. They're on whatever version of Deebo Samuel this is. It's disappointing that there wasn't more creativity offensively. That it wasn't just like, hey, kitchen sink game. Here you go. Like, I know that there's only so much they could have done, but I also would have liked to see him do it like a little bit more. At least look like you're trying.
It did feel like that those calls, those trick plays, those special, Shanahan in his bag plays were saved for, desperation times. Well, is this whole game not desperation time?
You're right, it is.
Exactly,
this is
dude.
a must-win game with your backup quarterback, your Hall of Fame left tackle's not playing, so it's Jalen Moore, who surprisingly wasn't that bad today. You wasted a great Jalen Moore day. How often can you say that? It's like, and then you don't have Nick Bosa, and then Leonard Floyd gets you 2 sacks, and your defense is keeping you alive a little bit in the second half, and it's like, sometimes I wonder, I know the fan base is much more prone to sound the alarm, to hit the panic button, go, everything's got to get fired and changed, but I wonder when that moment is for Kyle Shanahan. Because not that he'll sit there and fire the entire staff and restart from new and trade everybody away and say, you know what, 2017 all over again, we're rebuilding everything. No, that's insane. But I have to wonder in games, when and at what moments does he say, okay, we got to score. If we don't, game's over with. And going forward on 4th and 2, yeah, that's the moment you point to and say, okay, he gets it. You had to score here. But in the play call he uses, you're like, huh?
Yep.
Empty set. McCaffrey, like, why? Eric Saubert, 3rd and 7. Why is that your first read? Why? And again, I know Shanahan believes he's smart and he's a genius and all those things, in which those things are still true. Shanahan's a darn good offensive play caller, but it just feels like that he's kind of like Robin Williams in Hook. He forgot he's Peter Pan. You got to go back to Neverland and refine that magic, man. Go back to Neverland and refine who you once were. You were Peter Pan, brother. You were this ever-long, amazing offensive play caller, but you've grown old and you're kind of old and ragged and you got gray hairs in and you're like, I forgot what it was like when I was out there dialing up plays every single time, when I was making Nick Mullins lead George Kittle to a record-breaking receiving yard year. Where did that stuff go? I want to know when that moment is for Kyle Shanahan, because today should have been that day from the jump, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I agree. I also think when we have this conversation, like clearly, and I've been beating this drum all season, there has to be more creativity from Kyle Shanahan. Like, I am absolutely begging. I want to feel, again, where I'm like, wow, that was an incredible play call, and I haven't felt that all year. Like, I've been asking for that. But it's something you brought up, Kyle. It's something we've been talking about for a while now. We also have to maybe face reality that the players that would capitalize on those kind of creative plays, they just might not be that good anymore. Like Deebo Samuel, I mean, the biggest indictment on Deebo Samuel's ability is this game today. Yes. You're playing with your backup quarterback, as you said, Kyle, feels like the 2022 NFC Championship game where you had no quarterbacks. And when you have that situation, you just give the ball to Deebo Samuel over and over and over and over again because you feel like he's good enough, he'll break something. He'll make magic happen. He touched the ball once on offense. Once, and it was a trick play. Like that, if that is not Kyle Shanahan and the Niners offense saying that they don't believe Deebo Samuel has it anymore, then I don't know what it said. Like if that has to be what it says. That is the biggest indictment on Deebo Samuel's ability, that the 49ers aren't even trying to give him the ball anymore, because this was a game in 2022, in 2021, he has 15 touches in this game. At least. And probably 5 of them, 6, 7 of them are carries. He had no carries. 1 catch, and it was on a trick play. Like they're telling you with what they're calling, Deebo Samuel doesn't have it anymore. It is clear as day.
I also think it's not a great sign that your first-round wide receiver can't get a target. Not one. We're not drawing anything up for Ricky Pearsall. Can't get him a screen. Can't get him a slant. Nothing. All right, man. Keep taking those deep shots to Chris Conley, though. Love that. How exciting.
It was fun. Yeah, you're right.
CC1 the ball, baby.
Yeah.
I'm enthralled.
God.
Locked in.
That Eric Saubert target really got me going. Ugh.
God, they're not good. They're just not good.
Like that's like I think they're going to be okay going forward.
Yeah.
Not necessarily this season. Like you're probably looking at like 6-7 wins this year. But like going into next year, there just has to be some soul searching. It has to look a little bit different. I kind of wonder if we see them change their philosophy on, well, we're just going to kind of build a patchwork offensive line because you need dudes who get the ball, who get the ball and score the touchdowns. It's like, okay, so Trey Sermon, Danny Gray, and who's the other guy? Ty Davis-Price?
Tyrion Davis-Price.
Like, come on, man. Like that's what we're doing instead of building an offensive line. And I think part of the reason that we're not seeing that creativity from Kyle Shanahan is because they can't block anybody. They are not a good offensive front. You cannot have trick plays and slow developing plays when, it's going to get blown up. And now you're risking turnovers.
Yeah.
I think they need to rethink a lot of things. I'm not ready to punt Kyle Shanahan just yet.
Yes.
I totally understand the people who are frustrated and had it up to here with him. Totally get it. But this offseason is the one where, all right, you know what works and what doesn't with what your team's going to look like over the next few years. No Debo, maybe no McCaffrey, no George Kittle. Talking again over the next 4 or 5 years. You got to start making changes to what the offense looks like now.
Yeah, agreed. We can get more into that in a little bit, but I want to go out to the phone lines as promised. Mike has been hanging out on hold patiently. We'll get to all you guys if you just hang out on hold. There are a lot of you on the line, so stay patient. We will get to you. Up next is Mike in San Diego. I know Mike wanted to talk about Debo. Mike, how you doing? What do you think about Debo and the Niners?
I'm doing well. For me, it's kind of sad watching Debo now. Not because, he's bad. We get that. But he's a team legend, and it's just he's not the same player anymore.
Nope.
This entire season is mirroring, last year's Warriors season to me. Even down to the team legend who just doesn't have it anymore. Things seem stale. Blowing big leads a bunch. And the Warriors did a kind of bit of a soft reset. And I think Shanahan is probably going to have to be in the same scenario where you're going to have to do minor change philosophy, get an entire new support staff, and see what happens. I'm not ready to give up on Shanahan because 20 teams would hire him immediately.
No doubt.
Yep.
So you got a good coach, but I think it's time for a philosophy change. And I know Kerr was able to do it and willing to do it. I'm not so sure about Shanahan though. We'll see.
Interesting point. Mike.
I
Appreciate the call.
Comp.
I think what we saw, obviously, the Warriors do was they said bye to Clay, although they seemed like they wanted to bring Clay back at the right
Clay
number.
said goodbye to the Warriors.
It's true. But what Kerr has also done multiple times, and Shanahan, take notes, before the 2022 season when the Warriors won the championship and before this season, overhauled the coaching staff. Overhauled the coaching staff, brought in new faces, new voices, new thoughts, adjusted.
Interesting.
Won a championship in 2022 and off to a 12-3 start this year.
I love this. Is Chris Kasurik washed? Let's talk about it.
Bring in an actual defensive coordinator and, fire your special teams coordinator to start.
Ryan Schneider's got to go.
To start.
Please.
I think that's an interesting point. Sterling, what do you think?
I would push back because Kyle has been forced to kind of redo his entire coaching staff because everyone was poaching them for a long time. So, yes, I would agree that Brian Schneider has to go. And I don't know if Nick Sorensen gets fired or let go after you fired Steve Wilkes last year, unless someone's out there you point to. Maybe it's Jeff Ulbrich or Robert Saleh. He wants to come back to San Francisco. Maybe if the Bears fire Eberflus, he's a pretty good DC. I don't know if that scheme matches San Francisco at all, but I do think that there is some credence to the idea that San Francisco, sometimes when you have a firm foundation and that keeps getting plucked away from other teams, sometimes the foundation starts to crumble a little bit and you find yourself on sand. I think that's kind of where San Francisco is at, where, okay, you have an identity in regards of what you want to do, but you don't have the players and not even the coaching staff to execute that at what level you want them to do. So, but even into that, Debo Samuel feels like this team's Klay Thompson. He was called out by Terrell Owens on this very station, and he wanted to come back at him on Twitter in a small little kind of comment, and then, okay, how do you respond? By doing literally nothing. When, no offense to T.O., we love you out here, but as a diva receiver as Terrell Owens was, when that guy calls you out, you better answer in the right way. And Debo didn't answer at all, didn't even pick up the phone, and I'm going to say Debo Samuel in 2024 is a front runner. It's all name value. It's all swag and the celebrations, but he has 2 celebrations this year, and they've been rather meaningless for this team. This team needs Debo Samuel. He has been a ghost all year long.
Yeah, not only just the one touch on offense, which was the trick play that went for 21 yards, and we know he had the nice kickoff return that got called back. He had a couple other targets that he did not catch. One of those went right through his hands and turned into maybe the play of the game, an interception that turned the tide and ignited the Packers and flipped the football game. At the very least, Debo, you gotta get your hands on it and knock it down. You can't let it go straight through your hands, waiting with the defensive back waiting right behind you. So it was a very, very bad game for Debo, and it's getting more difficult with every passing week. To not come to the conclusion that Debo just simply isn't the player that he once was. It's becoming very difficult not to feel that way. Okay, back out to the phones we go. 888-957-9570. Javier in Vacaville is up next. Javier, thanks for holding. How you doing today?
How you doing, Mr. Grundy, Mr. Bennett? I just
and Mr. Madsen. Say hi to Kyle, too.
No.
Kyle's not here.
It's all good. Go ahead, Hop.
Yeah, like back to the core stuff. Like I was saying, the 49ers, it's not about so much firing the coordinators. Like, you guys kind of stated previously just 10 seconds ago or so, kind of steal my thunder. But statistically, you're giving up over 100 net yards and penalties on special teams alone. And defensively, Sorensen is not ready for the job. You look at the team, you guys are saying what everyone sees. It doesn't take a blind man to witness the Niners are doing what, other teams had to deal with when we played them the previous 5 seasons. And I feel like Shanahan needs to look himself, not in the mirror, but look at his team and say, as staff, loyalty will get you killed in business. And I feel like he's being loyal to people who've been around. Sorensen, who's been there for years as, assistant, pass game coordinator, defensive back coach, etc. Snyder's had 15 years in the league as a special teams coordinator, but it's a production-based business. Debo Samuel, we're seeing the iron falling off piece by piece, week by week, day by day. But, I think ultimately to get this right, Shanahan's going to, after today, I truly believe that Shanahan's going to have to get a passing game coordinator / offensive coordinator because the Niners have been figured out and he's lost some touch. They're predictable. Everything that they've ran, other teams have taken and made better. And that's not anything against Shanahan. That means that his scheme once was at the top of its rank. But the Niners are being sought after, snap in and snap out. Jordan Mason led the league in rushing, doesn't get a snap. Look at a guy like Brian Daboll. He'd be a great addition to this offense as an offensive coordinator. But it's a pride thing. Shanahan, you're going to let go of some of that pride, or you can go out like your dad did when he left the Redskins, now the Commanders and the Broncos, etc. And you're going to have to utilize different type of personnel package. There's no reason why he shouldn't be getting touches. Garendo shouldn't be getting touches. Like you said, Pearsall. Him not getting a touch, I think, is more a lack of production, not from his own usage and target standpoint, but his lack of skill set. I think that was a stretch drafting him there. We could have used our offensive lineman, I think, 13 times out of 10 at that spot last year. But that Shanahan saying, I want another piece that I'm going to put with this, checkboard that I got here. And that's fine and well. But now the roosters, or now, like you say in layman's terms, the hens are coming to roost. And everyone's looking back, roosting at Shanahan, and Shanahan doesn't have anything to work with. Well, a lot of these pieces he put together himself because he is the ultimate GM de facto. He gets the final call on personnel. And my last point is, people are going to scoff, why? If I'm the 49ers, I'm signing Daniel Jones tomorrow. And not to replace Purdy, but that's an asset management piece that you can dish down the line. Because if there's anyone that can rework Shanahan in regards to not just the asset value, but who can rework his value in the league, it would be Kyle Shanahan. And if you don't believe it, look at what he got or look what Darnold is now, look what Purdy is today. Most importantly, what's the problem of stashing him away in this team? Because you playing Brandon Allen with a broken middle finger, and you telling me he's more worthy to play than Josh Osborne than Hayden. You know something that we all don't.
Yeah, Javier, appreciate the call, Javier. Daniel Jones doesn't have a job right now, and he's going to get signed by somebody. Okay, whatever. If Brock Purdy's back next week, then it literally does not matter. And if Daniel Jones is your quarterback, if Brock Purdy's out for the season, surprise. First of all, Kyle Shanahan hates playing guys that don't know his offense, so I'm not sure he'd even play Daniel Jones. And two, if Daniel Jones miraculously does play, I guarantee you the Niners are not putting together a run and making the playoffs with Daniel Jones as their quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I don't think Daniel Jones is signing a multi-year contract at this point.
No, he's signing for the rest of the season to play a little bit.
And then hitting free agency.
And not signing a major deal, but getting a little chunk of money.
Now, I will say, if they got whatever MRI Brock Purdy got and they go, he may not come back this year, and you want to give it a rip with Daniel Jones, fine. Like, whatever. But I'm not going to go out here and say, like, they should do that or they need to do that. It's just, I get the idea. If this offseason, if the Niners want to Sam Darnold him and make him a backup for a year, great. That's a fine idea. I'm okay with that.
Also, I'm out on Brian Dable as offensive coordinator too.
And Kyle Shanahan's not giving up play calling, right?
No. And no, he shouldn't.
I think he'd quit.
He just needs to adjust.
He'd quit before he did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not signing Vanilla Vic or Danny Dimes. It's off the table this year, at least.
If Brock Purdy is back and playing next week, which we don't really know. Adam Schefter sent out a really cryptic tweet this morning about it.
Cryptic or just saying nothing? He might come back, but also
maybe
he
not.
might not.
So we'll have to find out. We'll have to be patient with that. But, I mean, even if Brock Purdy is back, I mean, again, the analytics say the Niners' postseason chances are somewhere around 15%. Maybe it took a little bit of a boost once the Cardinals lost, and now there's still only a game out of the NFC West. Wild card seems to be out of the picture entirely now. You're going to have to win the division to go to the postseason. The Niners still somehow only a game out, but they do not have the tiebreaker on anybody in the division at the moment. So we'll see how it does play out. Okay, we got to take a quick break. It's overtime here on 95.7 The Game. He's Kyle Madsen. That's Sterling Bennett. I'm Mark Randy. We got a couple of you on hold. We'll get to you when we come back. Also, we will hear from Kyle Shanahan before the night is over. We got plenty more to get into as the Niners fall in Green Bay 38-10. The Niners' worst loss to the Packers in history, and these two teams have been playing football for a very, very long time. Today was an embarrassment for the 49ers. More OT coming up next on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, it's Willard and Dibs for Safeway.
territory. That was a bullet from Jordan Love.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
That was Kevin Burkhardt on Fox calling one of Romeo Dobbs' 3 catches. I didn't realize this till right now. He only had 3 catches, Romeo Dobbs did. They all happened on the 3rd drive, and they were all 3rd down conversions. 3rd and 11, Dobbs for 29 yards. 3rd and 5, a slant to Dobbs, who ran right past Isaac Yadam, 10 yards first down. 3rd and 10, Dobbs, inside breaker against Renardo Green, breaks a tackle, gains 15 yards for a first down. Those were his only 3 catches, and they happened to all be on the same drive. All 3rd and at least intermediate, 2 3rd and long conversions, and it led to a touchdown for the Green Bay Packers. The Packers at one point were what? You guys can help me out with this, and welcome back to Overtime. Mark, Randy, Kyle Madsen, Sterling Bennett with you. At one point, the Packers were what? Like 5 for 6 on 3rd downs?
Yeah.
They just absolutely decimated the Niners on the money downs. They finished 6 for 13. So the Niners defense was much better in the second half. But that 3rd drive specifically, that made it 17-0, and I think kind of made everyone feel like the game was officially over. They hurt the Niners on 3rd and 11, 3rd and 5, and 3rd and 10. And we all saw it coming. Romeo Dobbs, Romeo Dobbs, Romeo Dobbs over and over and over again.
Easy. It's insane. We were just looking at the box score here real quick. The 49ers averaged more yards per play than the Packers today.
That's fun.
What?
How many fewer plays? 20 fewer plays.
20 fewer plays and 84 fewer yards.
And time of possession was about 37 minutes to 23 minutes.
And that's just, they got smoked,
They
dude.
did.
Yeah.
Yuck. That was bad. 888-957-9570. We're with you here on Overtime.
1 for 1 in the red zone, though.
The Niners were?
Look at them go.
Wow.
Hundo.
There we go. That'll increase
That's called improvement.
Who's got it better than us? Everybody.
You can thank George Kittle for that. Could you imagine Niners in the red zone without George Kittle?
No.
He has, 8 red zone touchdowns?
All 8 of his touchdowns this year in the red zone.
They might be setting a record for the least efficient red zone offense if it wasn't for George Kittle. He has been a red zone monster on an offense that is one of the worst red zone teams in the league. It is actually incredible how much success he's had in the red zone, considering how poor the rest of the team has been.
We can take a look and do a little math if you want. He has 8 red zone touchdowns this year. The 49ers entering today had 20. So when you take out George Kittle's 8,
12 red zone touchdowns without George Kittle.
12 for, is that 29?
12 for 29, that's 41%.
Ugh. Yikes.
It's not great. Not great.
Tough.
So quick math, yes, not good.
Not great.
Good
Not great,
without
Bob.
George Kittle.
But guess what?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's what you're paying him to do. Score in the red zone.
Yeah.
He's doing exactly what
Does
his
the heck out of
contract
it.
says he's supposed to do. Score in the red zone. Everybody else, not so much.
Yeah, one of the few Niners that showed up today was George Kittle. 6 catches on 6 targets. He caught everything thrown his way, 82 yards and a touchdown. The Niners' only touchdown in this game, it was George Kittle. He has been very good this year, and he continued that today. Okay, 888-957-9570. We will hear from Kyle Shanahan coming up a little bit later on, but let's run through some of these calls. Rob has been waiting patiently. Rob is in San Bruno. Rob, what's up? You're on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
What's going? I'm good. I think it's easy to say Debo washed this and that. He's not washed. The offense just predicted what's been figured out. The problem is Kyle favoritism is going to be his downfall. CMC should not be getting more carries than Mason right now. Mason was the league leader in rushing. We've seen it with our eyes. He was hitting the hole harder. He was running dudes over. He bought a certain feel when we was running up tackle and up the gut. We're not getting that with CMC. CMC can't even break a tackle. You know what I'm saying? He's not that guy this year. He really needs to sit out. You missed 10 weeks with Achilles injury on both legs. You shouldn't even be playing. And then with Debo, look, Debo need to line Debo up in backfield, match him up with safeties and linebackers. The same thing you're doing with CMC when you just checking the ball down. You're getting 10-yard catches here because you're checking it right down the middle of the field. Do that for Debo. Debo can honestly still break tackles, and when he get the ball, he can still do something. All right, we didn't draft him. He said, "Oh yeah, he's a great route runner." We know he's not a great route runner. We knew that from off top. But the way they using CMC, Debo needs to be in that position because CMC cannot break tackles. He's not doing anything since he came back. He hasn't been that type of player. He's not that guy this year like he was last year, and I think it's hurting the offense. Pearsall can't get open. We drafted him in the first round. I've seen it live. He cannot breathe. He cannot be pressed.
Okay.
He can't.
Rob, when was the last time you saw Deebo Samuel just break a tackle, run through a couple of dudes like we've seen him do for years in the past? I haven't seen him in a long time, Rob.
I mean, this is the NFL. He's not going to do that all the time. Those dudes get paid too. They don't want to get ran by a receiver, and I understand that. But when you put him in position, Matt, you got to put him in position. You got to match it like you do the same thing you're doing with CMC. Put Debo in the backfield and match him up with linebackers and safety. Work the middle of the field. He can still break tackles. He may not be running dudes over, but he can break tackles. We've seen that today when they put the ball in his hands. So in that interception that he threw, he threw that in triple coverage behind him. That would have been a great catch, and Debo might would have died when he caught it. So let's not do that. So my thing is this: CMC is not ready to play right now. You bench the guy who was leading the league in rush. I thought we played the high hand around here, or only worked for Trey Lance. We played a high hand, right? The high hand was Mason. Mason's a better runner this year. It's just facts. So why isn't he playing? You get this guy 2 carries. He was leading the league in rushing.
Hey, Rob, appreciate the call. I think everyone here is in agreement with you. You got to get Jordan Mason more touches, but this is also Christian McCaffrey, the reigning offensive player of the year and an MVP finalist.
Hey, come on. Also, just objectively, Debo's not breaking tackles like he was last year.
Okay, I got a stat for you to back this up.
Please.
And I know you have stats as well on this. There are only 3
we all
players.
have stats, Mark, okay? We all have stats.
We all have PFF accounts.
There are only 3 players that have averaged fewer than 3 yards per carry among the 96 ball carriers with at least 25 carries this year. Trey Sermon, Zamir White, and Deebo Samuel. Trey Sermon, Zamir White, terrible running backs.
Not good players.
Niners know specifically about Trey Sermon because they drafted him.
Sure.
And then Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, man. Look, I don't wholly disagree with what the last caller was saying. I'm with you. I believe Jordan Mason should be getting more touches.
Yes.
He's what did he finish with today?
3 carries for 8 yards, although he had a 16-yarder. He must have lost a bunch on a fumble or something.
Oh, my God.
I don't remember. It must have been late in the game.
A long of 16 and then had 8 total yards. But that first carry was 16 yards. That gave him 3 for 29 in his last 3 carries. Jordan Mason needs to be getting the ball. I totally agree.
Yes.
And that carry came early in the third quarter. Up to that point, leading up to the play where Mason got his first carry, the Niners had 14 rushing yards on the game. He then had 16 on the next play.
Yes. So I don't hate that idea at all. In fact, I totally agree with the caller. 100% bet we are in lockstep there. What I disagree with is that they need to get Deebo Samuel the ball more. Deebo last year houses that screen today. He just doesn't have the juice he used to have. He's getting beat to the edge by defensive linemen on jet sweeps. And on some level, it's the looks he's getting, right? Like that's what Kyle Shanahan said. Oh, he's going against bad looks. But also, his broken tackle numbers are way down. His yards after catch per reception at the lowest rate of his career, or lowest number of his career. He's not breaking tackles. He's not running away from guys. He's not surprising teams anymore. And like the caller said, he's not going to route people up. And when you're grizzly bear with chainsaw for arms rushing ability goes away, he doesn't have a ton. And you just see it. He just doesn't have juice like that anymore. And that's okay. It happens. He's super physical. They ran him into the ground. He's an all-pro. He's amazing. I have never seen a player like him.
2021 was amazing.
Unbelievable. We'll never see a receiver do what Deebo Samuel did in that season. I feel really confident in saying that. Because how many next Deebo Samuels have there been in the draft? A bunch. And they don't do it. Right. Too many. Exactly. So, man, I don't agree that Deebo Samuel needs to be getting the ball more because every time he's gotten the ball, it has been wholly ineffective this year.
And this in previous years, you see him break off, he'll knock around 2 safeties and a linebacker and he'll fight for 3 for extra yards. And this year it's 1 linebacker and he's down.
Yeah.
And it's a negative 1 yard run on 2nd and 10. And your team's in 3rd and 11. It's a screen pass that you get 21 yards on, which is great. You'll take that all the time. that is a play, like I said, Kyle, that Debo takes to the house last year.
Yep.
Now, yes, he had the big kick return today. That got negated, so there is that to Rob's defense, the caller. But we are now 12 games or 11 games into the season. Debo, outside of one game, maybe two this year, has shown nothing. There's not been the power. There's not been the ability to fight through contact. It's simply just been, I get held on, at the line of scrimmage. I get stuff there. I can't go anywhere. I'm giving my quarterback nowhere to throw the football. I'm double covered or whatever. And then when he has the football, it's nothing like Deebo Samuel has been. And unfortunately for a player like him that can't run routes, he becomes a one-trick pony. And when that one trick goes away, unfortunately, he becomes useless. Now, I don't think Deebo Samuel's useless. I think there is ways to get him involved. But
Sure.
You're not taking away CMC carries. In fact, I would rather have Jordan Mason touch the football almost every single time Deebo Samuel has this year. It's more effective. And even today alone, the issue isn't CMC getting carries. It's the fact is the offensive line cannot block at all. For
Huge
Debo,
problem.
for Mason, for Christian McCaffrey. There was a stat on the TV screen today that popped up like in the early fourth quarter, and I'm sure it's different now than what it was then. But on outside zone runs today, there was 11 attempts by San Francisco, under 10 yards. They run an outside zone scheme on offense.
That's their bread and butter.
And they have under 10 yards on 11 attempts. That ain't Debo's fault. That ain't CMC's fault. That ain't Mason's fault. That is an offensive line deficiency that has hampered this offense all year long.
Yes, very well said. And if we could go even further, whether it is just talent of the offensive line and that being the problem, or if it's just the scheme getting a little old and stale and defenses adjusting and figure out a way to stop it, to slow it down. I mean, both of those points hit home with Kyle Shanahan. It is, okay, you got to do a better job of finding the right guys to play on your offensive line, and you got to adjust your offensive scheme and, adjust to the adjustments. And we haven't quite seen that yet from the San Francisco 49ers, and that is an area that they can adjust. And they're going to have to, because that has been their bread and butter for so long. It's what helped Christian McCaffrey become the offensive player of the year a season ago, and they've had very, very little success with it. And I think to our caller's point, Robin San Bruno, this isn't Kyle Sterling and I saying that Debo Samuel is washed because he had one catch for 21 yards. And if he had 4 catches for 60 yards, that would be better. Like Rob's saying, just give Debo the McCaffrey touches, because Debo's still that guy. McCaffrey isn't. Sure, if he has 3 more catches underneath for 7 yards each, his stats look better, but we can still watch him as a football player and say, well, you're still going down on the first contact. You're not breaking tackles. You can't run past people as often anymore. The stats are one thing, and that's not good, but when he has the ball, what does he look like? Is he separating? Is he breaking tackles? And for me, guys, the answer is pretty clear. This is not a statistics thing. The statistics have been pretty bad. They could be better if they just gave him touches and easy catches, but it's so much deeper than just the statistics.
Look at the play calling.
They didn't give him the ball when they had their backup quarterback. If this is 3 years ago, he touches the ball 15 times, I guarantee you.
Minimum. And that's just it. You think Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to give Debo Samuel the ball? Kyle Shanahan loves Debo. Kyle Shanahan would love to call end arounds and jet sweeps.
God. He would have stayed up all night this week devising ways to get Debo the ball.
Right, but he just doesn't have it. Go back and watch week 10. Go find Debo Samuel's carry. It was like a jet sweep he was going right to left.
Yep.
He got beat to the edge by a defensive tackle. That is a thing that happened.
And lost a yard.
Yeah. The exact same thing happened last week. He just does not have that juice anymore. I'm telling you, this is not stats. This is not me. I love Debo Samuel. He's one of my favorite players who has ever worn a 49er uniform. This is not anti-Debo. Watch him. Get outside of your Debo fandom for a second and watch. And if you can watch and you tell me that's the exact same player, I would love to know your notes, because I have not gotten that vibe at all.
Yeah.
It's just a player that is nearing the age of 30 that has played an extremely physical role on this team, has carried the offense for an entire season, and inevitably, father time catches up to you, your body breaks down, and you can't be utilized in the same way you once were. Now, unfortunately, Debo Samuel is getting paid to be utilized the same way in which he was when he was an All-Pro.
Right.
Now, you'd like to think that in an offense that in a normal year would have a healthy Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and maybe Jordan Mason mixed in here or there, although have not seen that so far, even when he's been great. Like, you would like to use Debo in maybe a lesser capacity, but with like 3 or 4 like home run hitting touches a game. But that's not how the NFL works. When he's out there, you know he's getting the football. And when he's getting the football, there has been nothing that makes you say, oh, there's All-Pro Debo Samuel. It's like, wow, there is, unfortunately, an overpaid, later in his career, All-Pro player. That's life. That's football. And Debo is at the end of his contract. I would not be shocked if they say goodbye next year. He's given them nothing to latch onto and say, yep, he's worth what he's being paid.
Yeah.
And I hope that changes. I would love for Debo Samuel to lock in next game and carry this offense the way he did a couple of years back. It would change the entire season, but the odds that happen are darn near 0% because of where he is right now in his career.
Yeah, and if you were to tell me, or I think you guys would probably agree, tell any of us, preseason that McCaffrey would miss the first, 9 games of the year, first 10 weeks, would first play week 11.
Week 10.
Week 10. I probably would have said, oh man, I guarantee you Debo Samuel had himself a good first half of the year because he would have gotten all the touches he could possibly ask for, and it hasn't happened, even without McCaffrey.
You saw it week 1. Their break in case of emergency option at running back was Jordan Mason, obviously, but then it was, hey, here's a lot of Debo Samuel. Here's a lot of fun stuff with Debo Samuel. But he just doesn't have it anymore, man.
Yeah, it's rough.
Maybe he's hurt. Like, maybe he's super banged up.
Maybe there's something they're not telling us.
But go ahead.
Am I wrong to, again, I'm speculating here, but Debo Samuel lost a lot of weight coming into the year. Got himself in better shape, and I'm not sure if that was to maybe answer the Brandon Ayuk or Debo Samuel conversation, who stays after this year. Maybe he's faster on his feet, better routes he runs, although that hasn't been the case. I do wonder if losing weight to maybe push back on the Debo or Ayuk narrative of who they're going to keep may have made him less durable or less stronger to push through some blocks or to push through some tackles. It's all speculative, obviously, but I do wonder if the offseason program to get himself in better shape actually hurt him in the long run.
I do. I maybe there's something there in terms of breaking tackles and physicality, but he also just seems slower, right? And you feel like losing weight would make you, at the very least, not slower,
more explosive.
Maybe it would make you a little faster.
I had people who cover the team and are there every day at training camp. And I think people here who went to training camp talked about it. Like Debo Samuel looks like 2021 Debo.
Best shape of his life.
We might be in for a monster Debo season that makes this offseason really tough when it comes to wanting to keep it.
Yep.
And he just
hasn't happened.
It hasn't.
No, not at all. 888-957-9570. Let's go out to Eric in San Francisco. Eric, what's up? You're on Overtime. It's Mark Randy, Kyle Matz, and Sterling Bennett with you. Eric, how you doing?
Well, all things considered, all right. Happy holidays to you guys.
Yeah, you too,
early. Actually, I'm not bringing the fire and brimstone. I just wanted to bring an observation from my days with living with a whole bunch of Philly fans about Andy Reid and to pose a question to you about some potential similarities I'm worried about Kyle Shanahan's current stint with the Niners with what I saw with Andy Reid in his first stint with the Eagles and what I see with him now. And I kind of wanted to pose a question to you. And that was...
Yeah, go ahead.
In Andy Reid's first 5 seasons, he made the NFC title game after the first one 4 straight times. And in that 4th one, that's when T.O. broke his leg and they lost the Super Bowl. And at that time, I was living with a bunch of Philly fans. And after the Super Bowl, for like the next 8 seasons, he only made 1 NFC title game after that. And he missed the playoffs about half the time. And the thing I would always hear my Eagle friends complain to me about that I also saw in the game was that Andy Reid was very dogmatic. He came up through the Packers West Coast system. He ran a very West Coast heavy offense. And when things in the game started to go sideways, he relied on his dogma. And what I'm kind of worried about is we're kind of seeing a similar trend, which was Shanahan's been here for, I guess this is now his 8th season. In his first 7, he made 2 Super Bowls instead of 1. with the same amount of NFC title games. And the thing that's troubling to me about what I saw today and kind of over the course of this season, and is consistent with kind of what Ann Killian wrote in the Chronicle today about his troubling stats about from how he performs when he's down in the fourth quarter versus when he's up, is, again, I'm wondering, I think the best thing that happened to Andy Reid's career was that he got fired, even though he got immediately hired by the Eagles fans, or by the Chiefs the same off season, because I think it forced him to kind of reevaluate his kind of coaching philosophy. And the coach I see today is a play caller where he's very dynamic with Patrick Mahomes, and you give him Tyreek Hill and he'll run a jet sweep. But if you give him Juju Schuster-Smith, he'll run kind of a more possession receiver, and he's learned to use the tight end with Kelsey. And so I'm just wondering, do you think that the rigid dogma that has been the educational framework for football-wise for Kyle Shanahan is kind of holding back that next evolution that would get him from, like Andy Reid, the guy who's going to get your team from 6 to 10 to 12 wins consistently into the playoffs, to being that aggressive guy who's going to win you the Super Bowl? For granted, we were 2 plays away or 1 play away in 2019 with the Garoppolo miss, and obviously just right there in overtime. So we were a little bit closer than the Eagles were back in 2004. But again, I just had to watch so much Eagles football just because of who I was living with. So I kind of took an interest in Andy Reid, and I kind of see some similarities. And so I'm just wondering, again, I don't think we should get rid of Kyle Shanahan. The Eagles fans will tell you the worst thing they ever did was get rid of Andy Reid, because they sucked until Doug Peterson after they got rid of Andy Reid. I'm just wondering, from a Kyle development perspective, do you think that might be kind of a missing piece that would force him to, I guess, reevaluate his approach? I don't know. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. It's just an observation. I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts.
Appreciate the call, Eric, and a lot of good thoughts. I mean, obviously, there's been so many people that have drawn the Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan comparison, because a guy that's consistently winning and going to the playoffs and relatively deep into the playoffs, but can't quite get the final job done, and then gets fired after a couple of down years, goes elsewhere. And by the way, what we forget about Andy Reid with Kansas City relatively was the same thing the first handful of years in Kansas City. His first 5 years in Kansas City, they won 1 playoff game, 1-4 in the playoffs. And our caller, Eric, said the best thing that happened to Andy Reid in his career was being rehired by Kansas City the same offseason he got fired. That's wrong, Eric. The best thing that happened to Andy Reid was them drafting Patrick Mahomes, because that's what turned his career around. 1-4 in the playoffs with the Chiefs, and then Mahomes got here, and they're winning 3 Super Bowls and going to AFC championship games every other year that they don't. Like, there are similarities, but we can also point to drafting the greatest quarterback of this generation as the reason why we think of Andy Reid as the greatest coach of this generation as well now.
Yeah, it helps. Big time help, for sure. Like if Andy Reid had Kirk Cousins, are the Chiefs the back-to-back Super Bowl champs?
Absolutely not.
Right. So I do think there's something to that, but I do think it's interesting, and I think that that's where this season, let's assume it just continues this downward trend, and let's call it 6-11. Let's say they win 1 more game. They beat the Bears. We'll say that, and they go 6-11, and it's just kind of an ugly year. And this offseason, it's an exodus of Deebo Samuel, and maybe Aaron Banks leaves, and okay, they need a new right tackle. And I think maybe that, where you have to fundamentally change who you are as an offense, forces Kyle Shanahan to undergo that change that the caller was talking about with Andy Reid. Maybe he lets go of that dogma, right? These things that make him start or make him play Chris Conley instead of Ricky Pearsall in key spots. I don't know entirely if that'll help, but it's what I'm watching for sure, because I think something has to change, right? Like you can't just keep going down this path. Yeah. Sterling, we'll get your thoughts on that when we come back from a quick break. We'll ask you about the Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan comparison and Kyle's stubbornness, because there's no doubt that he is
relatively stubborn when it comes to how he coaches and puts the team together. Okay, 888-957-9570. We got more time for your calls. We will also hear from Kyle Shanahan himself. That's coming up on the other side as we continue. It's Mark Randy, Kyle Matz, and Sterling Bennett with you. More OT next here on 95.7 The Game.
Meet Cheryl. Hey.
That was a bullet from Jordan Love.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
Yeah, welcome back. Our guy Cam behind the glass is just teasing us now with Romeo Dobbs' third down conversion highlights over and over again. I mean,
cool, man.
Yeah, thanks, Cam.
We're just giving you a hard time. You're doing great, Cam. By the way, an update, the Sunday night game. Niners have a rooting interest here if you are one that is still believing in the Niners' chances to win the NFC West. Rams and Eagles. We should all be big Eagles fans tonight. It is 7-3 Rams, though, early in the second quarter.
The other thing the Niners rooting for, Saquon Barkley less than 100 yards rushing.
Oh, yeah? Niners are rooting for that?
The Niners?
Yeah, they're pulling for it big time.
One person is pulling for that big time. Yeah.
Speaking real quick, I want to get back to what we were talking about before the break, and I want to get Sterling's thoughts on it, but just very quickly. The reason I love 49er fans is because not a single person has called in today and been like, actually, everything's fine. This is good. We've had some people who are like, yeah, I'm not, I'm not that upset because this and that. But,
not trying
it's
to fire
disappointing.
Kyle,
But nobody's been like, you guys need to relax. Like, yeah, thank you, man. This is dire. Like, this is bad.
If
this is not going well. I'm glad everybody knows it.
888-957-9570. If you think that this isn't that bad, call and tell us, and we will all scream at you.
No, like we can all disagree about like this is the worst thing or that's the worst thing, or
you will get hung up on immediately,
or whatever we could all. But the fact that nobody's been like, hey, actually, I thought such and such was pretty good today. Malik Mustafa, that tackle for loss is great.
How about Jalen Moore?
Oh,
yeah.
my God.
I mean, Sterling gave him a
Leonard
shout
Floyd
out
did have
earlier.
2 sacks, mind you.
Leonard Floyd had 2 sacks immediately after I texted a couple of buddies and was like, man, I've been so underwhelmed by Leonard Floyd as a player. And then just bop. Just immediately.
There we go. You got to get those sacks in. Okay, we'll go to the phone lines in a second, but Sterling, I wanted to give you the opportunity to address what Eric in San Francisco asked us on the other side, essentially comparing Andy Reid's journey, longtime coach of the Eagles, generally successful, but couldn't get the job done. Then a couple of down years, got fired, hired by the Chiefs, and we know what the story is now with him and Patrick Mahomes and that dynasty. Talking about Kyle Shanahan's dogma or generally his stubbornness. How do you view what Shanahan is going through right now and maybe how that whole journey impacted Andy Reid and on his head coaching journey?
When Andy Reid got fired, I think what Eric's getting at, it was a wake-up call. Okay, what I'm doing isn't working anymore. I have to make a change, make adjustments, and those adjustments take time. Obviously, it was a work in progress or a work in progress in KC. Alex Smith was there. Matt Castle was there for a hot minute with Andy Reid. And then they got Patrick Mahomes and things changed seemingly overnight in Kansas City. But with Kyle, do I think that there's a wake-up call coming in the form of a firing? No. But I do think that similar to how 2020 was, where they had just said no to Tom Brady. Nope, Jimmy G's our guy. We're not getting Tom Brady. And this team wouldn't have won in 2020 with Tom Brady at all anyways, but still. They said, no, we're sticking to what works for us. Trading Buckner away, getting Javon Kinlaw, Brandon Ayuk. And then after that year, that was a disaster. Injuries everywhere. There was back and forth with Jimmy Garoppolo's medical and could he play, could he not play? Shanahan said, you know what? I'm making a change. And it was a massive one. A massive swing for Trey Lance. That didn't work, but Shanahan has shown that when they're really good, really successful, he's unafraid to make that big swing the very next season. And I'm not sure if that big swing, whatever that may be, I'm not sure what it is next year, but I am firmly on the side that says Shanahan is going to make a change in some form or fashion, whether it is changing the way they draft prospects and how they view the team, going from how they were in 2017 through 2020-ish in regards to trenches first. That has now changed to weaponry first, the cornerbacks, the safeties, the wide receivers and running backs first. Maybe it's a reversion back to what they were when they first came to San Francisco, but I don't think Shanahan is a head coach that, despite all the stubbornness he has in regards to play calling and talking to the media and all that stuff. All that exists, but I think the stubbornness that he doesn't have is the unwillingness to take a big swing after a terrible season like 2020. And I'm going to assume that's going to happen again this offseason as well.
Yeah. I think you make a really good point. He has shown, maybe not in what potentially has to happen this offseason, like not in along those similar paths, but he has shown the ability to say, all right, XYZ didn't work. Let's adjust and figure it out and move forward there. Like, he's going to have to make a change, I would imagine, that he hasn't really had to make before. But you're right, there have been other moments where he's had made major adjustments in other parts of his, decision-making process. And it has, while the Trey Lance experiment did not work, I think we were all in agreement, you're not winning with the current quarterback he had. Like, you got to take a swing. You swung and missed, but taking the swing was the right decision.
Right.
Like, boil it down to the 4th and 2 decision today. Going for it is the right decision. Maybe the wrong play call. Like, you picked the wrong player. You picked Trey Lance, didn't work out. You picked the wrong call, but
the idea was right.
There's a right process going on there. The execution and actually following through on it did not work. So I think that's a very good point. You can point to moments where he has made major adjustments and said, all right, this is not working. We have to change things up. Maybe you ultimately make the wrong decision and it still does not work out, but there's no denying there has to be some sort of major shift in terms of general philosophy, team building, coaching staff building, play calling, X, Y, and Z, all those different things. There has to be some sort of change if this continues down the line that it's currently going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. And that's what next season's about.
Yeah.
So I saw some Bleacher Report, Gridiron, is that what it's called? Whatever.
Gridiron?
Yeah, whatever their football was like. Is Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat?
Yeah, I saw that too.
Like, no, not now. They've had a lot of success, and I think that counts for something. I think it's really worth remembering, and I brought this up last week. I'll bring it up this week, and I'm going to bring it up after every single loss the rest of the way. Jim Harbaugh went to the NFC title game in 2011, the Super Bowl in 2012, the NFC title game in 2013. They went 8-8 in 2014. Jed York said, that's not good enough, you're gone. Then they did the Jim Tom Sula year, they did the Chip Kelly year, and then they got to Kyle Shanahan. They got out from under the Jim Harbaugh thing too early because of the power struggle with Trent Baalke and all that.
That was more than just the wins and losses with
no doubt.
Harbaugh. Yeah.
But I think if you're Jed York, you're looking at that and that's instructive here. Hey, this coach that's had a ton of success. Now, again, there's not nearly as much friction now as there was, and you're right. There was so much more to that than wins and losses. But I think that plays a role in this for the 49ers and for ownership. They don't look at this season as like colossal failure. Oh my God. Like, yeah, it's a failure, but not, oh, this coach can't do what we want to do as a team. I don't think they're there yet.
Yeah. And if we are to continue like on the Andy Reid comparison, Philadelphia made the NFC Championship game in 2008, lost to the Cardinals. Went to the playoffs the next year, lost in the first round. Went to the playoffs the following year, lost in the first round. Then 8-8, didn't make the playoffs. And then 4-12 didn't make the playoffs. Like, there's multiple years of not winning a playoff game and then not even making the playoffs and then fully bottoming out to 4-12.
And going the wrong direction.
Yes.
We'll take it further. Then it took them 2 different head coaches, 6 seasons, and a miracle season by Nick Foles to even win a Super Bowl. Like, it took them rebuilding with, I guess you can say, the dream team with Vince Young and DeMarco Murray and Nnamdi Asomugha and Michael Vick. That was the big team, right? And they were terrible. Wildcat Ronnie Brown. Like, it took them literally rebuilding everything, not once, but twice, with 2 new head coaches, 2 new cultures, and multiple quarterbacks. MVP Carson Wentz to torn ACL Carson Wentz to Nick Foles miracle run. Now he has a statue outside of the arena. Like, it took literally everything to get back to where they were, and I get it. You people are mad at Kyle Shanahan, and sure, this year's been pretty bad for what the expectations were, but do you want that? You want 6 years of crap of 2 different rebuilds and multiple different quarterbacks and all that disaster to maybe get a ring? You're better off sticking with Kyle and hope he changes something.
Yes.
That's more bankable than 2 new rebuilds to get there.
Yes, absolutely. I'm in agreement with you as well. 888-957-9570. Up next is Jan in Mountain View. What's up, Jan? You're on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Thank you. What I was wanting to present is I'd like to know what the definition of special teams is, because every time I look up, there's a team that's off of the regular offensive staff that's helping, break a tackle and they get injured or something else happens. I thought this was a different team, like maybe 6 individuals that were on the sidelines that came in, after the first, after the offensive team went off the field or something. I didn't realize that, they were all connected for one play or another. I'd like to know what the definition is and how many players are supposed to be on there, because every time I look up, there's an offensive player or there's a defensive player. What's the definition? Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate the call and the question, Jan.
Good call.
So special teams, it's not like a whole separate roster or anything. You have what, a 53-man active roster. You have only 48 you can dress on game days, right? And you have to be very particular with who you're dressing and who's active for a game. Generally speaking, your backups on both offense and defense make up your special teams units. And I'm talking mostly like kickoffs, is like when you're kicking field goals, like the linemen generally are you're still your offensive linemen and all that. If you're talking about like kick returners, punt returners, the gunners, the blockers on kickoff and punt returns, those are generally speaking reserve players that would go in and play offense or defense if there was an injury ahead of them. And what Kyle Shanahan has spent so much time talking about this year, and part of why he blames the special team struggles on, is they have had injuries to their starters on offense and defense that has forced reserves into offense and defensive action, which has then forced them to play less experienced players on special teams. And there's kind of a carryover effect. But generally, it's just the reserves on offense and defense that play special teams.
Yeah, everything that's not offense or defense is special teams.
I don't think that's what she was asking.
Was it not?
I think she was figuring.
Maybe I misunderstood the question.
Who are these players? Who's playing on special teams? Unless I totally misunderstood what she was
San
asking.
Francisco.
I think you did a good job explaining top to bottom.
I tried my best.
Yeah,
I tried my best. The bottom line is, though, Jan is right. Like, every day, every game, you watch a Niners game and you're frustrated by what happens on special teams.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt. It was bad again today.
Once again. The thing that's wild, and to Jan's question, I guess, the 49ers have signed players like specifically to play special teams. Like it'll be Oren Burks. He's a reserve linebacker, but he's mostly going to play special teams.
George Odom, unless there's an injury.
McLeod.
Yep, Nick McLeod, who's on their practice squad, who they
got
elevated.
called for holding today.
Who is my guy from Arizona? Zeke Turner, linebacker they signed in the offseason and cut. Like, they have signed guys specifically to play special teams to try and improve those units, and it doesn't work. They can't figure it out. It is unbelievable.
Not great.
It's almost like it's the coach.
Yeah, I wonder
Brian
who's
Schneider.
seen that coming from miles and miles and years away. And that's got to be...
If there's that one wake-up call Kyle Shanahan might need, it might be firing Brian Schneider when the year's over with.
Yes, that is something that has to happen.
That's the wake-up call.
Gets Brian Schneider out of there. He's like, hey, dang. You know what? I should use Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey. That's crazy.
That's just the mental block that's blocking everything else.
Hey, why do you guys think Jordan Mason doesn't play more?
Sterling he returns kicks to open games.
Oh, okay. Because he plays special teams?
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's honestly a very good question.
Yeah, no idea.
That's the thing I haven't been able to get my head around.
I think the best way to use Jordan Mason, and obviously he was very good like the first 6 weeks of the year, and then you could kind of sense him wearing down a little bit. And you and I and Sterling, we've all talked about this all year. And I think I brought this up maybe week 2 or week 3. Like, there was going to come a time where if you give Mason 20 carries every single game, like he's going to wear down, and he clearly did. I think the perfect way to use Jordan Mason, give him like 7 touches a game and just let him average like 6 yards a carry on those 7 touches. He will give you those 6 yards a carry.
And if he does start going at 6, 7, 8 yards a carry, keep giving it to him.
Until he doesn't anymore.
Like, I understand wanting, and I guess this is what we had a caller earlier kind of talking about this, and I don't agree on giving Deebo Samuel the Christian McCaffrey touches, but I do agree that, like, why isn't, I understand that Christian McCaffrey is the reigning offensive player of the year and was 3rd in MVP voting last year. Scored 21 touchdowns. Led the league in touches and scrimmage yards. I know. I understand how good he is.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is how he and Jordan Mason can't coexist in an offense. I would love to get Kyle Shanahan in a room and, like, show me on film why this doesn't work. Show me why not one snap of it.
I was begging 4th and 2.
Do something interesting. Do something different.
McCaffrey in the slot, Mason on the left hip of Allen. Come on, please.
It's like what you're doing clearly isn't working, so try something different.
Which is so weird because it's not like in previous years, the reason why Jordan Mason wasn't the number 2 back was because Shanahan loved Elijah Mitchell and he had that great 2021 year and he could pass block and Mason was so good on special teams. Okay, well, Mitchell's out, so Mason becomes a de facto number 2 behind Christian McCaffrey. That makes sense. But now this year, Mason has been the more efficient and better runner even when CMC's healthy, yet you're actively choosing to keep that guy off the field. I get there's money involved, there's status involved, all those things. And I get CMC being the guy that gets 10-plus carries a game. But the fact is that you can honestly argue a more effective Niners offense this year involves Jordan Mason more than Deebo Samuel and more than Christian McCaffrey. And no one's saying don't give Christian McCaffrey the football. It's just saying there is better ways to get him the football than just not utilizing Jordan Mason to do so. That's the issue. Is that you're keeping right now your best ball carrier on the sideline, not because he didn't earn it or deserve it, because you're choosing to not do it. And that's a problem.
Yeah, I agree. And it is something that the Niners, I think, I would love, as you talked about, Kyle, to get a real answer from Kyle Shanahan about that, because obviously he doesn't have to tell the truth to the media anytime he gets asked that question. But I would love to know the actual reason behind it, because it just seems like when you got McCaffrey in there and you've got a running back in there who's proven that on a limited number of touches, he could be very, very, very effective. I don't know how that doesn't help your offense out. One other area that the Niners seem to really struggle, and not seem, that they definitely struggled in today, defensively, trying to tackle Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs broke 15 tackles today alone. Josh Jacobs by himself. That's the most by a single ball carrier in a game this year. The Niners as a team missed 20 tackles, and I want to play something for you. This is from Niners defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen, early October, after the loss at home to the Cardinals, before the win in Seattle that at the moment we thought kind of revived the season. This was Nick Sorensen after the Cardinals lost, asked about Niners missed tackles specifically in that Cardinals game, but really it's been an issue all season. Here's Nick Sorensen nearly 2 months ago.
We miss tackles sometimes because we're aggressive. Like, we do coach our guys to take their shots. If you show, like, make me a cut up of those tackles and I'll tell you if it's a good or bad one, to be honest. I mean, that's just, we play aggressive, we play violent. We have, sometimes Fred shows up with quite a few missed tackles, but if a guy stops his feet and they're having to take time and that guy loses a yard, but you kind of fall off and now we've got 2 other guys coming, then that's not a bad missed tackle. Sometimes they're a little bit different. I'd have to quantify it by looking at tape. Then I could probably talk you through if they're good or bad or not.
That was Nick Sorensen nearly 2 months ago on missed tackles. That has still becoming an issue, is still an issue. 20 missed tackles today. And I would ask Nick Sorensen, hey, of the 20 missed tackles, Nick, how many were bad missed tackles? Because to me, it looked like they were all pretty darn bad.
Just an insane answer. Like, missing a tackle is objectively a bad thing. Maybe other guys fly in to make the tackle instead.
And he's saying they're coaching that. They're coaching them to be overly aggressive. And sometimes as a result, you're missing tackles.
Yeah, and I guess it's like base running, right? Like, there's an aggressive base running mistake in baseball. You're trying to stretch your single into a double, and you know what? You got thrown out, but a good aggressive mistake, I guess. But that wasn't what I saw today almost ever. It was just guys whiffing in the open field or guys not wrapping up in the backfield. Like, it just, I'm sorry. I can't get behind the idea of a good missed tackle. And the context of that, by the way, was in week 4 against the Patriots, they missed a season high 17 missed tackles.
Yikes.
They followed that up against Arizona with 12. So they had 29 missed tackles across 2 weeks. You cannot sit there if you're a defensive coordinator. There's nothing he could say. There's nothing he could show me on film that would be like, oh, you know what? That's actually, most of those are good. Most of those are good missed tackles. Love the over aggressiveness. Like, whatever it is, it doesn't work, Nick. Whatever you're teaching is not working.
20 missed tackles today.
20. That's so many.
And that's what happens when you hire a defensive coordinator as your third choice, and he's the guy that's running the get the ball drills a year ago.
Yep.
He's a guy that wants to attack, and as Tom Brady says 90,000 times in the broadcast, it's a swarming defense, right? Like, yeah, that's what it was.
You did say that
it
a
was
lot.
a swarming defense.
That was the D'Amico Ryans thing.
Swear.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was their motto, not the way they played defense. But there was a play in this game, and which happened so many times, so it kind of all molds together. But there's a Wilson on the Packers. He's running towards the outside.
Emmanuel.
And it's Jair Brown is the only person on the outside. Your job as a safety, the last line of defense, is to force him back inside to the tackles to hope that even if you miss a tackle, there is the rest of the guys there to finish it off for you. What does Jair Brown do? He cuts inside and says, hey, Wilson, have the entire seam and the sideline to run.
Yep.
19 yards later, a first down. It leads to a Green Bay Packers field goal later to make it 10-0. It's stuff like that, okay, nobody minds when Hufanga or your safeties or even Mustafa in this game take a chance, they blitz, they're in the backfield, they want to make a big play and get a tackle for loss. We're all for that. We love playmaking safeties. But the issue is that when your playmaking safeties aren't making plays and they're being, dare I say, just not playing smart football and they're not guiding the running back inside the tackles, that's bad defense. It's just playing bad defense. You can miss a few tackles here or there. It happens. If that total was 10, not 20, okay, this game probably isn't 38-10. Maybe it's 24-10 still. Like, the fact is, you miss 20 tackles. You can say, yeah, we play fast. We're going to miss some tackles here or there. But 20? And it's not just, oh, Josh Jacobs is great. It's no, you're playing bad fundamental defense leading to 20 missed tackles.
Yeah, and the point of that soundbite from 2 months ago just proves that it has been something that has been hurting the Niners all season long, and who knows what has exactly been happening behind closed doors, but based on what happened today, it doesn't really seem like it's being addressed, Kyle.
20 missed tackles today, but like 9 of them, good missed tackles.
Yeah, we like to see that.
The kind of missed
tackle
we like to see.
Not all missed tackles are created equal. We all know this.
Many have said this. Yeah,
we know this. All right. We got to take a quick break. We got one more segment with you here on Overtime. We will hear from Kyle Shanahan, I promise. Coming up next, it's Mark Randy, Kyle Madsen, Sterling Bennett with you. The Niners fall in Green Bay today, 38-10. They're 5-6 on the season. Somehow, some way, still only a game out of the NFC West because the Cardinals lost in Seattle today. The Rams right now at home against the Eagles. They lead by 1, but the Philadelphia Eagles are on the move towards the end of the first half. It's currently 7-6. Rams lead the Eagles. Time for a break. We're back with more Overtime next on 95.7 The Game.
This year's ratings of the best TV.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
Yeah, that was a fun moment in this football game. Maybe one of the few fun moments the Niners had as they lose 38-10 to the Green Bay Packers. It was a George Kittle 3-yard touchdown catch from Brandon Allen. It capped an 11-play, 65-yard drive. It got the Niners within 10. That was at the very end of the first half. The Packers, though, should have found a way to score right after that because Jordan Love hit Christian Watson in the hands for what would have been a walk-in long touchdown, but he dropped it. But the Niners got back within 10, had the ball twice, down by that same score in the third quarter, but could not score either time. They ultimately lose 38-10. The call you just heard courtesy of Fox, Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady on the call, doing a good job as always, but the Niners lose 38-10. They're now 5-6 on the season, still though somehow only a game out of the first spot in the NFC West because the Cardinals, they put up a stinker in Seattle. The Seahawks defend home field and they knock off the Arizona Cardinals. The Rams right now on Sunday Night Football in a battle late first half. It's 7-6 in favor of the Rams. The Eagles, though, second and goal as we speak right now. What's up?
Not looking good for the Niners on that Saquon Barkley rushing total.
Oh, yeah. What is he at now? Is he already over?
Nice, it's 73.
73. Yeah, not great. I mean, Saquon's been amazing this year.
Unbelievable, dude. They just put a stat up that in his time with the Giants, he averaged 1.4 yards before contact, and this year he's at 2.6.
Wow. It's almost doubling.
Unreal, dude. Unreal. The Eagles are good. The Eagles are really, really good in the NFC.
They are. They are very, very good. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because we spend so much time talking about
another guy got walloped. On
AJ Brown dropped it. They spend so much time. We spend so much time talking about how maybe running backs not like terribly important across the NFL. Like there's kind of become a reckoning. Like you don't need to pay running backs anymore. Saquon Barkley, great things with the Eagles. Derrick Henry turning that Ravens offense into like the best offense in the NFL. Joe Mixon is having himself a hell of a season with the Texans. And
Tony Pollard in Tennessee.
Yeah, Tony Pollard in Tennessee. Aaron Jones hasn't really been that healthy, but when he's been healthy, he's been very effective for the Vikings. Like you got a lot of veteran running backs who kind of were cast off by all of their respective teams, and they're the reason why a lot of those teams have kind of turned it around.
I think if you're plugging a player into a good system or a good foundation, it works.
Yeah.
But I think if you're a team picking in the top 5, a running back isn't going to save your franchise. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
But Ashton Genty, Boise State, who knows? He might be the guy.
Okay, but that's a good example. I don't think Jacksonville stinks. Like I don't think they're as bad as their record. If they drafted Ashton Genty at what 4th or 5th, I wouldn't hate it. It wouldn't be the worst thing.
Yeah.
And that defense still stinks.
Yeah.
Can't stop anybody, but you can probably score with everybody at that point.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
You know how you're talking about the Niners rooting for Saquon's under yardage to hit?
Yeah.
Niners rooting for that Ashton Genty Heisman ticket. Someone's got a future for Genty to win the Heisman.
Oh, yeah.
And that guy would be this guy. So, come on. Get it done. Get it done, Boise. Get it done, Ashton Genty. Anyways, we're off topic. We got 20-ish more minutes with you here on Overtime on 95.7. The game as the Niners fall to the Packers 38-10 today in Green Bay. Let's hear from Kyle Shanahan. We will also give out game balls to close things out. As always, this is going to be really difficult to hand out game balls for this game. That's how bad it was and how barren it was for the 49ers. We will do that coming up in a little bit. But first, Kyle Shanahan speaking post-game in Green Bay after the Niners 38-10 loss to the Green Bay Packers. Here it is, Niners head coach Kyle Shanahan.
All 3 led to touchdowns with 21 points. You top that with the penalties and stuff, and that's how you get embarrassed like that.
How did you guys get back-to-back?
The first one, they had 12 personnel, 2 tight ends in the huddle, which means we have base defense out. They sent another receiver on the field to sub, which when they sub, they're supposed to allow us to sub. So as soon as they did that, we started to change our personnel, and then they rushed up to the line and snapped it. It was a strategic play by them, but one that I don't feel should have been allowed. They didn't give us time to sub on that, and that's why I was upset on that. And then the next one, because they got away with the first one, they tried to do it again the next play, and that's when I went out there arguing again. This time they did allow us to sub. I was out there screaming the whole time, so I'm not exactly aware of what happened with our 12 guys, but obviously we had 12 guys out there. They gave us time to sub, and we didn't get one off. So the second one was on us. I mean, when you play first half like that, we got to be on in the second half, and I loved how we came out on that kick return. I thought that was going to give us some huge momentum. Got called back with that penalty, so we had to go on a long, good drive, and on that drive, I think we got stopped on 4th and 2. But our defense, I think, held them to a 3 and out, so we got it right back, and we were driving, and I thought it seemed like a hell of a throw. They had some soft zone, and he threaded in there between their 2 backers, and looked like it went off Debo's hands, and that was huge because we were trying to get back in the game, but also because they got a big return and got 7 points off of it.
Second, we can roll a lot of penalty issues. What's your frustration level right now with that?
Big. I mean, that was huge at the beginning of the game. I mean, we were struggling to get the ball at the beginning of the game, and both of those first 2 drives. I mean, we had 2nd and 1 and go back to 2nd and 6 on that tip ball. And then the next one we started in 1st and 20. So I thought that killed us in the opening drives, and I'll see on those special team ones, a couple I looked up on the scoreboard and, see on the plane how much we agree with them or not, but we got to be much better with the penalties, obviously.
I know you never want those issues, but when you're missing as many key guys as you are, is it even more imperative to play clean?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really not concerned right now about how many guys we missed today. We don't play good enough, so that's not a factor. But when you are missing some guys, you do have to be better. And when you have those penalties, when we didn't stop the run like we did, and then having those 3 turnovers in the second half, that's how you get embarrassed.
When did Brandon?
What was your assessment of how Allen performed
I thought Allen, from what I saw, first of all, we all got embarrassed. No one played that great, but Brandon, I thought he did some good things. I thought he made some big throws. Just the plays I can think of. He had a rough one in the beginning that he threw to them. They dropped. 2 plays he just slipped on that field that hurt us. But I thought Brandon made some big throws and stuff and gave us a chance.
When did he his finger?
A few weeks ago, whenever we reported it.
Why start him in spite of it?
Because he's not hurt. Okay. You said why start him? Why start him because of the injury?
In spite of it.
He's fine. He hurt his fingers like 3 weeks ago. No, we haven't done anything since. He's been rehabbing the whole time here, and I'm sure we'll take him to some stuff early Monday or Tuesday and got a better idea then.
How close was Trent today? What was that decision?
It was close. It took it all the way up to now, but all the way up till today. But he was hurting yesterday a little worse than last week at this time, which made us nervous, and didn't wake up good today.
What is your vision?
We didn't get our run game going much. I think we only had about 14 carries, and we didn't see much from anybody today.
Do you feel like you guys have lost some of that physicality that you guys try to have as a building block for this team?
In what aspect?
It just seems that in the running game both ways, the offensive running game and then the run defense just seems to be, it almost feels like you guys are kind of getting pushed around in front.
It's a good old line. They got a good scheme. They ran the ball well. When you say we're missing physicality, we are missing some guys, especially some of the more physical guys in terms of like Greenlaw and stuff, and some of our D linemen, and losing our biggest run stopper and Jordan Elliott during that game. So when you're missing some guys out there, which makes a difference, but I thought they did better in the runs versus in the second half. Offensively, I don't think we're lacking physicality. We just didn't get a run game going today, and a lot of that has to do with not attempting to do much of it too. It's good. All right, guys.
All right, there's a relatively despondent Kyle Shanahan after the 49ers lost to the Packers in Green Bay 38-10. The The one moment that stands out was when, of course, Kyle Shanahan was asked about Brandon Allen's broken left middle finger and asked why he still started him despite the broken finger. And Shanahan, he essentially, after making sure he was re-asked the question, making sure he understood the question fully, essentially said, well, he's not really hurt. It's not really bothering him anymore. But he got a little bit snippy as he has at times this year, and you can understand it. I mean, I'm sure he's incredibly frustrated, but that was an interesting moment in this post-game presser.
I'm not there every day. I'm not totally sure, but just based on context clues and watching all these press conferences, I think the source of the question might have generated a little frustration. If I can say that.
Yes.
Yeah, like Brandon Allen's a backup quarterback. If that finger was part of the reason that he struggled today, I think that they wouldn't have started him. But I didn't watch Brandon Allen today and at any point go, well, it's obviously the finger. Like the ball that he fumbled, it wasn't like he dropped a snap. If he had been dropping snaps and handoffs all day, okay, that's one thing. But like, it's on his non-throwing hand.
Yeah.
I don't think it had an impact at all. I couldn't care less about Brandon Allen's finger injury.
Was that sloppy field out there, though?
That's why, he kept slipping. That's what it was.
The other thing that Kyle Shanahan brought up, and it was at the very, very beginning, the 49ers managed to find a way to commit the same penalty on consecutive plays. And I don't know how we didn't even bring this up until now.
Great point.
It was at the very beginning of the second quarter. Actually, hold on. When was this? Let me find out exactly when it was. The Packers were about to go down, and they were in the red zone. They were driving, and the 49ers trying to sub a player off. The Packers quick snapped the 49ers, and you heard Kyle Shanahan say he didn't think that snap should have been allowed to happen that quick because the Packers sub, they need to allow the Niners to sub. Whatever, it did not happen. That one is understandable. Packers gotcha. Maybe the refs missed one. Okay. But the very next snap, literally the very next snap, 12 men on the field again, and this wasn't like they caught you again. You were running a guy off the field. You guys had 12 men lined up, ready to play a snap of football. The exact same the play immediately before it, also 12 men on the field. The fact that happened on consecutive plays, that just shows, I think, what you led the show off with, Kyle, the general unpreparedness of this football team, the general lack of any sort of, realistic desire to come out and try to win this game, the lack of focus. That penalty to happen on consecutive plays is absolutely unforgivable.
I hate the phrase inexcusable because so many things that are excusable, people call excusable. Like 5 for 37 from 3, inexcusable. Yeah, sometimes you're going to miss shots. Like, it's fine. But that is inexcusable. Play stopped. Like you said, it wasn't the first one. They caught him off guard.
Yeah, that's whatever.
Devondre Campbell a little slow getting off. Whoever it was that came on, Kalia Davis or whoever it was.
Kalia Davis, yeah.
A little slow to get on. All right, you know what? Stuff happens. But play stops. Dang, we had 12 dudes on the field. Let's make sure to not do that again. And then you just have 12 dudes on the field again? That can't be a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Not because it lost in the game, but it's that attention to detail. It's that, hey, we're super locked in. Here's exactly what we're doing. We have this very specific plan. That's insane. 12 men on the field after what amounts to a timeout is crazy.
Wayne, you're forgetting some context. On the first 12th man call, it was offsetting penalties. It didn't even count. And they had to come together and talk about it and go, okay, what were the penalties here? Who was involved? And they said, you know what? After like a 30-second delay, both teams are at fault, offset, 2nd and 7 all over again. And San Francisco still, after that, got caught for the same penalty, which led to a 17-0 score by Green Bay. So whether it was held to a field goal or whatnot, whether it changed the game at all, it obviously didn't. But it's like small stuff like that has been filtered in throughout the entirety of the year. It's this unbuttoned up nature by a Kyle Shanahan team that has haunted them in previous years, in playoffs, and today. Now, today didn't matter that much, but it's the fact that in those moments, it's highlighted so much where you're like, yep, this is who they've been for a long time. It's cost them over and over again in pivotal moments. You can go back to last year in the Super Bowl. Yep, not knowing the overtime rules. It's unbuttoned up. It's unprepared. And the fact is, your defensive coordinator, whoever's in charge of defensive substitutions, failed. Not once, but twice.
In a row.
On back-to-back plays where you had a chunk of time to figure things out and make the correct substitutions you wanted to. And it's like, at that moment, and there was a play later in the game where Shanahan called timeout for the defense. That never happens. That happened in the Super Bowl, and then he fired Steve Wilkes later. And I'm trying to connect things that don't actually connect, but him calling a timeout for the defense, that never happens, ever.
That's pretty
And it happened today. And I was like, oh, okay, it's third down. Shanahan's calling timeouts. He obviously doesn't like the call somewhere. Something's up. Something's got to be up.
Yeah, that's just a microcosm, I think, of the season as a whole. All right, we got a few minutes left here with you on overtime. Before we get to game balls, and we're going to try our best to give out game balls. It's going to be tough. We will try our best. I did want to give you guys a little bit of some good news.
Oh, I love good news.
We want a little bit of a fun factoid, historical factoid for the 49ers. George Kittle, 6 catches today, now up to 509 in his Niners career. He passed both Dwight Clark and Roger Craig for third most catches in Niners franchise history.
That's big time.
Behind Jerry Rice and behind T.O. George Kittle is number 3.
Might catch Jerry Rice someday.
No, probably not.
30 years.
He is, let's see, you're going to do the math. He is 83 away from tying T.O.
Oh, we might get there.
We might do that. Wow.
But he is not even halfway to Jerry Rice.
That's okay.
That's how good. That's how good Jerry Rice was. Yeah. Congrats to George Kittle. Passed a couple of greats, Dwight Clark and Roger Craig. Now third on the Niners all-time receptions list in their franchise history. Okay. Let's get to it. Game balls as we always do. If you guys want to get super creative, hell, if you want to pick Packers, be my guest. Whatever the hell you want. We'll start on offense. Game balls.
Might be the only option.
Game balls on offense. Kyle, I will give you first dibs. Go ahead. Who do you got? Game ball on offense.
Game ball on offense. You know what? I did this as an honorable mention last week. I'm going to just do it this week. Jordan Mason. Shout out to Jordan Mason. Getting in their first carry, 16 yards. Outrushed the 49ers by himself on that play. That was their longest rush of the day.
Yeah.
I think their only explosive run of the day as well belonged to Jordan Mason.
Yeah.
Salute to Jordan Mason, who I'm just going to keep talking him up until he starts playing more.
Salute Jordan Mason. All right, Sterling. Offensive game ball. Who do you got?
Well, don't forget, Jordan Mason had the longest kick return of the day, 29 yards.
Wow.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, hey, and for special teams. Nice job, Jordan.
He did not fumble that one out of bounds.
That's right. That's right. There really is only one other option for San Francisco on offense, so I'll just take it. George Kittle, 6 catches, 82 yards, 1 touchdown, the only touchdown of the day for San Francisco. The amazing, I guess you could say, opposite hip catch from Brandon Allen today. Kittle just continues to prove, doesn't matter who the quarterback is, he's going to be the all-pro that he's always been. So George Kittle gets my game ball.
Yeah, that's a good pick. That's the easy pick. I was not expecting it to last to me, so good job, Sterling. I'll go next, offensive game ball. I'll go kind of off the board here just because it was the 49ers' first down of the game. Kyle Juszczyk with the 14-yard catch. There we go.
Love to see it.
Now, that was his only offensive touch of the game, so it is what it is. But the Niners were very, very rough through the first few drives. Kyle Juszczyk, 14-yard catch. I believe it was on third down to convert, and they got the chains moving a little bit there. I'll give Kyle Juszczyk a shout-out for what he did on that specific play. He gets a game ball for me, but that's just how rough it was offensively for the 49ers. And then we'll transition to defense. We'll go in reverse order. So I'll go first this time. Relatively easy one when you just look at the statistics in this one. I'll take the guy that had 2 sacks. Leonard Floyd, the only 2 sacks for the 49ers in this game. And I believe at least one of them came in a relatively big moment when this game was not over. The second one was kind of teetering on game over territory. But Leonard Floyd showed up for a couple of plays in this game. Those 2 sacks, 4 total tackles in the football game. You needed him to be good without Nick Bosa. He wasn't great, but he was the Niners' best pass rusher by a wide margin. Leonard Floyd, game ball for 2 sacks today. Sterling, you're up next. Who do you give a game ball to for defense?
I think I will give it to Fred Warner. And only because of one play, and the play that means nothing in retrospect, meaningless. But San Francisco had just turned the ball over on downs on fourth down, the 4th and 2 incompletion to Christian McCaffrey, and the Green Bay's near midfield. And this is a chance. It is 17-7. They can go up and make it 24-7. And the defense answers, gets a big 3 and out on Leonard Floyd's sack. Who was running up the seam with Christian Watson? Fred Warner.
Man.
Side by side with the wide receiver that dropped the wide open touchdown early in the game. What are you throwing into him? I have no idea. But it's stuff like that doesn't go in box scores, that you don't see on the broadcast, that you look at it and you go, that is an all-pro play from an all-pro player. And I think Fred Warner deserves some flowers for that play, so he'll get my defensive game ball.
What do you think,
Kyle? I love that pick. I'm going Renardo Green.
Okay.
I know he got flagged for the PI. I thought that was kind of a ticky-tack PI penalty.
Yeah.
In
that
the
was
end
one
zone.
in the end zone, yeah.
But he was credited with 1 pass breakup. He had the near interception off the bad throw that behind, I think it was Dobbs. He got tipped up in the air. He nearly had that. Renardo Green just continues showing up. Like every time the Niners defense is on the field, there's 2-3 plays a game where, man, you know what? Renardo Green, nice play there. So salute to the rookie. He continues to play really well.
Was it, we were talking about the 12 men on the field penalty, the first one where the Packers caught the Niners trying to sub late. That was a free play. Jordan Love just threw it in the end zone. That was Malik Mustafa who had the interception, but it never lasted as it. That was Mustafa, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, he had an okay game.
He had the big hit in the backfield. That was cool.
He had an incredible hit in the backfield. That was a tackle for loss. One of the Niners' 5 tackles for loss in the game.
Everybody just do that. Why can't everyone just do that?
Yeah, come on. I mean, he's good for like one of those a game.
Yeah.
Malik Mustafa is. He's a lot of fun to watch. But
can I give a
honorable mention or
no, the other way?
Oh.
Yeah, just like one of those.
Mention.
Yeah, dishonorable. No, that's not what I'm looking for.
I hope it's who I think it is.
No, I don't know how I feel, and obviously we gotta bounce here soon. But today was the first day that I've really been like, I don't know how I feel about Jair Brown as a starting safety moving forward. I just, I don't. I feel like I very rarely notice him where I'm like, dang, heck of a play by Jair Brown there. Just he's missing a tackle here, he's dropping an interception there.
As Sterling pointed to, he was the reason why, right? It was him that allowed Wilson to get outside, didn't get out, take outside leverage.
I don't know how I feel about him.
I'll say this:
he'll be back next year because he has to be.
I'll say this about Jair Brown: you're right. There haven't been a ton of moments where you just watch a play and you're like, Jair Brown made that play.
Yeah, and he was my dark horse Pro Bowl guy this year. I was all about the Jair Brown experience.
It's kind of either been he's been invisible or he's like, ooh, he made a mistake there.
Yeah.
It's kind of what the Jair Brown experience has been this year.
I will say this, though. Jair Brown's struggles may open the door for a Talanoa Hufanga return next year in free agency. Never know.
It might be a relatively cheap return.
Yeah, given the injury stuff.
And he hasn't, I mean, even last year before he got hurt, he wasn't playing great.
If he came back this year, he has to play over Tig, right? Jair Brown, sorry.
Yes.
You moved
I don't know
Mustafa
the guy.
to
I don't know
free
why I'm
safety,
calling
I
him by
guess.
his nickname.
I think
you guys
so.
are tight. Don't worry. You guys are buddies.
Yeah. I think you just play your 2 best players there. Jair Brown doesn't do enough for me to be like.
Might not be one of your 2
have
best
him on the
safeties.
field.
Mustafa definitely is.
Yeah, he's been a good player.
He's your best safety.
Yes, no doubt. All right, that's all we got time for today. The Niners lose in Green Bay today, 38-10. The Niners up next. They are on the way to Buffalo Sunday Night Football a week from now. A week from now, that game will be going on, and then we got you covered for postgame after that. I hope every one of you out there has a good Thanksgiving. We'll be back after Thanksgiving as we continue to recover from our food comas, on Sunday. Niners and Bills, 5:20 on Sunday. Of course, we got pregame coverage. Then we got postgame coverage, as always, here on 95.7 The Game. And we're live and local every day this week here on 95.7 The Game, except for Thanksgiving. So keep it locked all day, all week. I'm sure there will be a ton of Niners reactions tomorrow and Tuesday and even Wednesday and Friday as well. Okay, for Kyle Madsen, for Sterling Bennett, for Cam Williams behind the glass doing a great job. My name is Mark Randy signing off. Thanks so much for tuning in to Overtime here on 95.7 The Game. The Niners fall 38-10, and they're now 5-6 on the year. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk next time on 95.7 The Game.
Ooh, we got a question.